This is City News 1011 everywhere.
It's Thursday, October 27th. Good morning. I am Damilola Unime. Right now in Ottawa and in Smith Falls, it is partly cloudy and 5 degrees. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. Only one witness will take the stand today at the public inquiry into the federal government's use of the Emergencies Act. OPP Commissioner Thomas Carrick is expected to discuss how the police force prepared and responded to the protest against COVID-19 mandate. City News Parliament Hill reporter Cormac McSweeney has more.
Tow trucks could be an important line of questioning for Carrick. In previous testimony from other police officials, we've heard about this possible deal for a few dozen tow trucks to be made available to police that came before the Emergencies Act was invoked, raising questions about whether it was needed or not. However, a letter from the OPP commissioner presented as evidence in the inquiry shows that that deal actually fell through when the province couldn't meet the demands of the towing companies. And in that letter, Carrick cites the Emergencies Act as a reason for securing the tow trucks needed to clear the streets.
And Carrick told the House of Commons Public Safety Committee in March that the OPP's intelligence unit had identified the protest as a threat to national security. But the head of the intelligence unit told the commission last week that there was never a credible information showing a direct threat to national security. And one of the biggest moments of the inquiry in the federal government's use of the Emergencies Act is set to come tomorrow, where the former police chief is set to testify. City News reporter Chris Curris with a look ahead.
Peter Slowly is one of the most fascinating witnesses to come because he was in the middle of everything, and he's been referenced by nearly everyone in this inquiry, from provincial police who said he was disrespectful to them, to former colleagues who said there was much infighting within the ranks, and more. But now we'll hear from Slowly himself, and a summary report of his pre-interview is revealing some of what he plans to say, namely that it's of his opinion that the Ottawa Police Service could not have done anything materially different during the convoy. A bit of a contrast compared to what other officers have been saying. He will testify tomorrow. Chris Curry's City News.
And with the weather forecast for Ottawa and the Valley, here is City News meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Cooler air moving in with a brisk wind out of the northwest. We've already reached our guaranteed high for the afternoon. We'll sit at about 10 degrees, so we'll rebound a little bit. Mainly clear, quite cool tonight, down to -1. For today, varying amounts of sun and cloud for the afternoon, near 10.
City News time is 10:03. As inflation soars and social assistance rates plummets, the number of people using food banks across the country has surged to an all-time high. A new report from Food Banks Canada indicates there were nearly 1.5 million visits to food banks in March, a figure that was 15% higher than the same month last year. The March figure was 35% higher than visits in March 2019 before the pandemic started. The report analyzed data from more than 4,700 food banks and community organizations, citing the skyrocketing cost of food and housing to the rise in food bank usage. Another emergency department in the region will close its doors overnight going into the weekend. A statement from the Glengarry Hospital in Alexandria says the ER will be shut between 7 p.m. tonight and 7 a.m. tomorrow. The same closures will happen on Friday and on Saturday. Now, the hospital is expecting additional ER nurses to arrive next week, and they are hopeful that the additional staff will help stabilize the staffing situation and also reduce closures of the ER. During the planned closures, paramedics have been told they will be rerouted to other ERs in the region. I am Damilola Unime. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Connecting you and your community. This is the Sam Laprade Show on City News
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, hello, everyone. Thanks so much for spending time with us here on Rogers TV and City News. We're so happy that you're here. We have a very big show for you today. You might remember we have been doing a number of areas of focus, and one of them has been on domestic violence. We put a big focus on the tragic murders that took place in the Ottawa Valley 7 years ago. There was an inquiry done with a number of recommendations, 86 recommendations, and we have put a real focus on this. We are in week 6 of a 6-part series on these recommendations. And we're going to be spending some time today with Erin Lee and Pam Cross on this particular issue. We're going to be taking a bit of a deep dive into that. We're also going to spend some time today with the Executive Director of Volunteer Ottawa. The Voskers are tonight. I'm so happy to be hosting those awards, and it's going to be a very, very special night for a number of people in our community. I certainly look forward to that. You might be thinking to yourself, things have shifted a little bit on City News, and you are right. I am here with you, of course, from 10 until 1, and at 5 o'clock in the morning, you wake up with Andrew Boyle. Of course, he brings you the first at 5, and then Rob Snow. You wake up with Rob Snow between 6 and 9, and David Smith joins you from 9 until 10, and then, of course, I come in at 10 o'clock. So some changes on City News. I hope you're enjoying the changes we've made. We certainly have, once again, lots of great guests for you today. Eric Alper is going to join us, publicist and music commentator. He's always a great guest. We're also going to spend time today with Sally Lane. You might remember Sally Lane. She's joined me a lot here on City News. Her son, Jack Letts, is in a Syrian prison. She hasn't seen her son in 9 years. There's been some developments on this front. We're going to speak with Sally a little bit later. As we've been following, Queen's Park, of course, came back. The legislature began sitting again on Tuesday. We wanted to spend some time with Dean Tester today regarding the housing bill that's been introduced. Dean Tester joins us now. He's a housing advocate with a local group called Make Housing Affordable. Hi, Dean.
Good morning, Sam.
Thanks so much for spending time with us today. This new housing bill that's been introduced by Minister Stephen Clark, give us a sense of what you think of the proposal.
So, from our perspective, this bill is a monumental step forward for housing policy in Ontario, and perhaps the most important bill ever proposed by this government. As you know, Ontario needs urgent action to solve our housing crisis. We have a massive housing shortage and some of the most unaffordable homes in the world right now. And this is the most ambitious plan I've ever seen in Canada. So they're doing a variety of things in this bill. They're encouraging missing middle housing, which is basically, the housing that sits between single-family homes and condo towers. So, 3 to 4 stories, 4 units plus. We're trying to see more of that type of housing built, the type of housing you'd see in cities like Montreal or Paris or a lot of places around the world. Mm-hmm. They're encouraging more density around transit, which is really good. We've invested so much in our LRT. We need to get people actually using it. And in general, this legislation will help make housing more affordable in our city, reduce urban sprawl, and help us build livable and walkable communities.
And we know that Premier Ford has indicated he's hoping to build 1.5 million homes in 10 years in the next decade. Have you thought specifically regarding Ottawa? I know, Dean, you've talked a lot about the challenges that we've been faced with here in Ottawa in terms of housing. What does that mean for this particular city?
So the province set a target for the city of Ottawa of 150,000 new homes by 2032. So we've got a decade to hit that target. That is a very ambitious target. It is double what our current official plan proposes. It is 50,000 more homes than Mark Sutcliffe's plan that he was elected on to build 100,000 homes. So the city certainly has its work cut out for it. The city is going to start undergoing what's called a zoning bylaw review early in this term of council. It's normally a long process that takes several years. I think they're going to have to speed that timetable up, and they're going to have to be very open to legalizing more forms of housing and resist the urge of some people in our community who don't want to see more housing built. Mm-hmm. This is an urgent need for people in our city. The alternative, if we don't build this housing in our city, is that people are going to move to Carleton Place. They're going to move to Arnprior. They're going to move to Smiths Falls. These are all great cities, but the result is you have people driving an hour or more into work every day. There's an impact on these families because of that. There's a climate impact of having those cars on the road. There's an infrastructure impact on our roads. And there's also the fact that these people won't be paying taxes here anymore, but they'll be using all our services. So, this is really a plan to get those people back into Ottawa neighborhoods, let them live close to where they work and play.
We know Municipal Affairs and Housing Minister Steve Clark also announced the fact that the province was raising the non-resident speculation tax on homes purchased by foreign nationals from 20% to 25%. Were you surprised by that, Dean?
I wouldn't say surprised. I don't think that's a particularly meaningful change. I think it's a little unfair to try and blame our housing issues on new Canadians or, people who want to come to Canada. Overwhelmingly our problem is that we just haven't built enough homes. And you can look at that in a number of ways, but the main thing I always say to people is that compared to an average G7 city, Ottawa is nearly 100,000 homes short of where we should be. And that's an average city. We don't want to be an average city. We want to be a great city. We want to be a great city for people to live in and grow up and raise a family in. And we can't do that if young families can't afford a home here.
Mm-hmm. And we know the rental builders as well will see development charges reduced. And I'm really curious to see how that's going to go with municipalities, right? Because, of course, municipalities are depending on those development charges to be able to service those areas. And there's going to be even larger discounts on family-sized units, because a lot of times buildings are constructed, but it's only meant for one or two people. So
that's right. And, I see this as a huge positive change. I don't understand why, in the past few years, we've raised taxes on affordable housing, nonprofit housing, apartments. Apartments pay, per unit, nearly double in property taxes what other residential units pay. That just doesn't make sense. Apartments is something we want to incentivize. We want to make it affordable for renters to live in this city. We want to make it affordable for students and, people who are just starting their careers, people still in school. And so the city, they're going to be a little bit upset at losing some of this revenue. But the good news is the province is going to be reimbursing the cities for a lot of these fees by the sounds of it. They'll be using money from the federal government, actually, the Housing Accelerator program. So a lot of that money is going to come back to the city anyways. But, realistically, in my opinion, we've kept property taxes frozen forever. That's wonderful for homeowners. But we've raised taxes on renters. We've raised taxes on first-time home buyers. We've raised taxes on affordable units for people who are the most desperate to get a roof over themselves. We need to find a better balance with that, because we can't expect the least fortunate in society to pay a bigger and bigger chunk of taxes in the city.
Mm-hmm. Dean, I always value your time and really appreciate you sharing your message today. We'll be following this closely, as you know, as you referenced as well. Mayor-elect Mark Sutcliffe has really certainly made this a priority. So let's keep talking, okay, Dean?
Yeah, always happy to chat.
Thanks
Great
so
to
much.
see you.
Always a pleasure. Dean Tester joining us, housing advocate with local group Make Housing Affordable. When we come back, we're going to meet some of those new counselors. Maybe they're in your ward. Lock it in to City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Hello, my name is Sean Duhame. And this is the Sean Duhame Trio. I hope you enjoy it.
October 5th, 2014, my daughter was hit by a train. She was walking along the sides of the tracks, and it shattered her world.
When it comes to drugs, how much freedom is too much for kids? Drugs are out there. Will my teen feel free to say no around other kids?
I didn't live drug-free when I was younger. Can I admit that to my kids?
Drugs worry me, but how can I feel free to talk about it with my kids?
Questions about drugs and kids? Drug-Free Kids Canada.
I'm a singer-songwriter from Six Nations, and I've been writing songs about my experience, and with that being said, it's helped me hold hope in my heart in following my dreams and being resilient to everyday Indigenous battles.
Competition between spirit, earth, and wind, let me tell you now.
This song in particular, The Shiner, is a special song that I wrote for my grandfather. He was a snow snake maker, and that is a Haudenosaunee winter sport. It's my job to educate and to share, and the music allows me to do that.
He'll be shining snow snakes and mud cats to the end of his days.
Donations to the War Amps have a lasting impact on amputees. Today, your support gives them the artificial limbs and resources they need for everyday activities and learning to live with amputation. Having access to our essential programs helps amputees prepare for tomorrow on their road to independence. The War Amps is committed to improving the quality of life for Canadian amputees, but this wouldn't be possible without you. To learn how your donation helps, visit waramps.ca.
Join me for Season 3 of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. Whew, that was a lot. I think I need a nap.
On the next episode of Simply Cooking by Chef, tacos aren't only for Tuesday. I make a Mexican taco feast for a crowd.
Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, this has been a very busy week for many people in our community, and it's hard to believe that election was on Monday night. It feels like it was weeks ago. But we're so happy to be introducing you to some of these councillors who are going to be representing your communities. And we're heading to Somerset Ward to speak with Ariel Troster. Hi, Ariel.
Hello.
How does the title Councillor-elect sit with you?
A little bit strange, but I'm getting used to it. And of course, I'm delighted.
Absolutely. You have big shoes to fill, Ariel. Have you thought about that? Catherine McKenney, of course, made quite an impact here in our city. Has that been processed for you yet?
Absolutely. I mean, Catherine, to me, was a model of public service. They were an incredible advocate for homelessness and affordable housing in our neighborhood, and I really hope to continue that legacy.
Absolutely. What are your priorities, Ariel?
Well, I just finished listening to your interview with Dean Tester. Making rental housing more affordable and preserving the affordable rental housing that we have is definitely number one. I met so many people who either feel like they can't afford to live in the neighborhood, or that if they ever needed to leave their apartment for some reason, that they would be pushed out. So it's incredibly important to me to ensure that we have a diverse downtown community, and that people feel that they can stay and that they can join us in Somerset Ward.
Mm-hmm. And Somerset Ward is just this, just this vibrant community. And, we saw it obviously go through a very challenging time during the so-called Freedom Convoy. We know that time is being relived in many ways during this Emergency Act inquiry. There is such a diverse group of people living in Somerset Ward. How do you make sure you're looking after all of their needs, Ariel?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Somerset Ward actually has the highest rate of poverty in the city, but also incredible wealth and wonderful businesses. And we have Spark Street and Elgin and all these different areas. The thing that I found really remarkable when I went door to door is no matter people's income level in the community, people were compassionate and wanted to ensure that everybody had a place in our community and that we continue to be as vibrant as we were before. So I really believe that reviving the downtown starts with ensuring that people can afford to live in our community. They have the services that they need to thrive, and by creating people-friendly spaces downtown to make our neighborhood more accessible for everyone. But it's, we're the neighborhood with the highest rate of poverty in the city. Somerset Ward has an average income that's $20,000 to $30,000 less than the rest of the city, and we have the highest number of people living in rooming houses. So all of these things need attention when we're talking about revitalization of our downtown core.
Really interesting. I didn't know that last statistic you just shared. That was really interesting. Let's talk a little bit about council school, which you're going to be entering into with your fellow council members. What's it like to sort of be part of that and learn the inner workings of City Hall? Are you looking forward to it, Ariel?
I sure am. I have a feeling it's going to have first day of school vibes, which I'm very excited for. I think it's a huge opportunity that coming at this stage in the pandemic, we are able to meet together to form real relationships with our colleagues. I think that it's very easy for debate to become really fractious online when you don't have the chance to have a coffee after a meeting or have a conversation about someone's family. And I think cementing those relationships really early on and trying to get a good read on the realities in everybody else's ward will be really important. It's been really wonderful. Other newly elected councillors and incumbents have reached out, and I'm just so happy to have that opportunity to build those relationships. I think a lot of the people who are elected just this week have a more of a whole of city approach, and we all have really similar values. I mean, anyone who steps up to run for office cares about their community, and I think we all want to see transit that works, housing that's affordable, and a community where everyone feels supported. So I'm really excited to learn more about all the different realities across our city, because we're a very big, sprawling city.
We certainly are. We certainly are. I really appreciate you taking time today. I know how busy and you're being pulled in all sorts of directions this week, so I really do appreciate you spending time with us, and look forward to future conversations, Ariel, and consider this an opportunity to sort of share a little bit, but we've got 4 years to talk, okay?
Absolutely. Okay, thanks so much.
My pleasure. Ariel Troster joining us, of course, Councillor-elect for Somerset Ward. Well, why don't we take transit? We're going to head all the way to Barrhaven. How are you, Wilson Lowe? Hi, Wilson. Wilson, are you there? Oh, we're just looking for Wilson Lowe. He's the councillor-elect for Barrhaven East. We're going to be spending some time with him today. We're hoping to get him on the line. Our producers are working hard to work their magic. We're also going to be speaking in a little bit with a representative from the Alliance of Iranian Canadians. We know the ongoing situation in Iran is absolutely tragic. We're going to be speaking to Ram Jubin, VP of the Alliance of Iranian Canadians, in a little bit. We're just trying to get Wilson Lowe on the line. Wilson, are you there?
Hello.
Hi, Wilson. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
Good. We were just speaking with your council colleague, Ariel Troster, in Somerset Ward, and we decided to take the bus all the way to you. So we're landing in Barrhaven East right now. And what's it like to have the title of councillor-elect?
I'll be honest, it still hasn't sunk in, and I don't think it's going to for another few days or weeks.
Well, hopefully it does by November 15th.
Yes.
Because then it becomes a new title, which is councillor. What did this win mean for you?
It's the culmination of about 4 months of hard work. I visited every single house in the ward, and it's something that I'm incredibly proud of, that I'm running to represent the community and not myself. So I made sure that I visited every house in the ward, and it's been an incredibly positive experience. It was incredibly encouraging and more than I could have expected.
Well, I certainly know you visited our house because I came home one day and my daughter said, I met Wilson Lowe today. So that was fantastic. We appreciate you visiting and knocking on all those doors. What are your priorities for Barrhaven East?
It's getting in, out of, and around a community is a major indicator of the quality of life in that community. So it's whether you're a motorist, whether you're a transit user, a cyclist, or a pedestrian. It's well known that Barrhaven is woefully underserved in many modes of transportation. So that's my priority.
And just even getting us around Barrhaven with transit is a challenge right now. Hopefully that's a focus as well, just getting us from one end of Barrhaven to the other, Wilson.
Absolutely. It's right now our transit system is designed to kind of really cater to your downtown 9 to 5 commuters, and we seem to cling onto this hope that everybody is going to go back downtown every single day. So we have a lot of underused resources out there that are transporting, 4 to 5 people a trip. And even though those passengers, I'm not discounting the fact that there are still passengers on those buses, but from an operational standpoint, it's not fair for people who continue to rely on services where they have to go to work every single day, and all they're seeing is these express buses go by them with very few people.
Mm-hmm. I know you mentioned that you learned a lot about the community by going door to door and preparing for this campaign. But Wilson, what did you learn about yourself during this campaign?
That's a great question. I might actually be more extroverted than I thought. But maybe it was just a pretense of showing up to a door with the flyers and being their candidate and everything. Mm-hmm. But I learned that I could pivot easily sometimes when needed, and that I actually do enjoy chatting with people about really anything, whether it's local issues or just about the recent surgery that one of the residents' dogs had, for example.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're certainly at some point soon you won't be able to go grocery shopping without being stopped, and people will be mentioning different things that are happening in the community and looking for your help. So we wish you all the best for the next 4 years. And as I said to Ariel Troster just a minute ago, hoping this is just the first of many calls with you over the next 4 years to try and move some of these issues forward in terms of municipal government. And congratulations again.
Thank you very much. I look forward to it.
Look forward to it. Wilson Lowe joining us, Councillor-elect for Barrhaven East. Of course, that was formerly Gloucester South Nepean. So lots of ward name changes and boundary changes for this particular election. When we come back, we're going to speak with a representative for the Alliance of Iranian Canadians. Stay with us here on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Every year, dozens of Canadians are killed or seriously injured because they take risks around railway tracks. Talk to your loved ones about rail safety. Visit stoptracktragedies.ca.
Salut tout le monde, je m'appelle Jessie Lindsay. Venez écouter mon spectacle Encore Ottawa 3 sur Rogers TV cette semaine. Hi everybody, come listen to my Encore Ottawa 3 show on Rogers TV this week. I hope you enjoy it.
It's closing time, and you stayed out longer than you planned. So now you can't drive, and the buses have stopped running. You could always call your girlfriend. Or maybe your roommate? What about your best friend? You could just dial 1-888-TAXI-GUY or use the Taxi Guy app. The call and the app are free, and they both connect you to a local cab company to bring you home safely. Visit arrivealive.org to find out more. Arrive Alive, drive sober.
After a 2-year hiatus, we are back with brand new episodes of Celebrate Ottawa starting this fall. We showcase remarkable people highlighting the city's diversity in arts, culture, sports, and nature. We will show you features that will entertain you and will even teach you new things. Join me, your host, Lila Grind, as we explore and celebrate Ottawa.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
For local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 101.1 everywhere.
It's Thursday, October 27th. Good morning. I am Damilola Unime. Right now in Ottawa and in Smith Falls, it is 5 degrees. And here's what's making news this hour. The former chief of Ottawa Police says his officers couldn't have done anything different during the response to the convoy protest that gridlocked the city's downtown core. A report of an interview with Peter Slowly has been submitted as evidence at the public inquiry investigating the federal government's unprecedented use of the Emergencies Act in February. In the report, Slowly says the gaps in intelligence ahead of the protests show there is an excessive focus on Islamic extremism in Canada's national security strategy at the expense of other threats. Slowly, who resigned at the city's top cop 1 day after the Emergencies Act was invoked, is to testify in public hearings in Ottawa tomorrow. There are 5 committee meetings scheduled with the outgoing city council still involved over the next week. Today, planning committee will be dealing with a number of zoning bylaw issues. The police services board and the finance and economic committee meetings are scheduled for next Monday and Tuesday, while the committee of adjustment meets twice next week as well. The new council will be sworn in on November 15th. And the price of gas will take some extra funds out of your wallet today and wait until tomorrow to fill your tank. Won't help you either. 1 litre of regular unleaded went up 7 cents to just under $1.74 this morning. It'll go up another 3 cents tomorrow. Gas experts warn we could be paying $2 a litre for regular unleaded before the end of the year. City News time is 10:31. I am Damilola Unime. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
And you're back on Rogers TV and City News. Thank you so much for joining us. We certainly have a lot of different guests for you today. We've jam-packed the show for you, so you'll want to stay with us right through until 1 o'clock. We wanted to spend some time today with Ram Jubin, VP for Alliance of Iranian Canadians. Hi, Ram.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. Thanks so much for spending time with us. We know that this has been a very, very difficult time. For those that aren't familiar with what's happening in Iran, can you give us a bit of a summary?
Absolutely. It's at the 6th week now of where the leadership in Iran is in a crisis due to massive protests, decentralized strategic protests all over the country, strikers from teachers to bus drivers to oil workers. But as you said, it's been a very difficult time because the regime in Iran has a history of very brutal crackdowns, extrajudicial killing. You've seen on the news women, bodies being found all over the place in Iran, kids, minority groups being killed, middle school, high school being attacked, because unfortunately that's all who sometimes is left is middle school, high school students doing protests due to security concerns. They are taking some charge, unfortunately, of doing the protests in the schools, not going to classes, taking off the scarves, and just for the right to choose how they dress themselves, etc.
It's heartbreaking. Some of the footage out is really, really hard to watch. I can't imagine living through it. What are you hearing from people living in Iran right now and in terms of connections here to Canada?
Okay, well, interestingly enough, there are many people outside of Iran, including in Canada, who are directly connected with people in Iran. The internet there's been attempts to shut down the internet. There have been ways to circumvent that, to ensure that that type of footage does meet the eyes of individuals such as yourself and the general international public. So that is really important that we do have a direct connection, including in the Alliance of Iranian Canadians. We have direct connections with inside the country, and what we're seeing is a continued crackdown, but also some really good strategies being used by the protesters, a lot of sort of civil disobedience, a lot of civil methods, from nighttime shouting death to dictator from the rooftops to, again, protests at the schools, certain neighborhoods, catching the regime off guard. It seems to be attracting slowly more and more people in Iran. So there's a glimmer of hope. I don't like to predict things. A lot of people are saying that this is sort of the end game of the regime. They're not able to enforce hijab on all these women that are now not wearing it all over the country. And so there's an enforcement problem, certainly for the regime. They're stretched out thin. They're getting a little desperate, but I can't really predict what the end result is going to be here.
Well, we know the grieving process. We understand 40 days of grieving for Mahsa Amini, and we know that so many people have lost their lives after she lost her life for not wearing what was deemed to be her scarf, her headscarf, correctly. I can't imagine what this has been like for her family and for her friends to know that, she really has been, someone that has been obviously looked at so beautifully through all of this because she has gone through such torture in her life and the outcome of that. I can't imagine what that's like for her family.
Yeah, I mean, we're on, a lot of people are actually celebrating right now, thinking this is the end of a major dictatorship. It's the end of sort of religious extremism in the mainstream, because all over the world we're dealing with religious extremism. And a lot of people are beginning to celebrate, but it's a little bit, what about all those people that are in jail, being tortured, etc., and Mahsa Amini herself being absent from from being able to see what's going on in her name. There is a beauty to the protests, but certainly you hit the nail on the head there. There's a 40-day grieving. Now we're hitting the 40th day, and there will be more and more protests that will sort of make their way to the news cycle, I believe. But I do want to emphasize how this relates to the international community and even to Canada. This is the only regime that has the power to try to bring extremism into the mainstream. So, we're talking about in Palestine, Lebanon, Iraq, all these countries are dealing with religious extremism and proxies of that government. And, there's an incredible benefit to the international community to support these protests like you're doing. And it does actually relate to Canadians in a variety of ways, more than you would expect, because despite the fact we don't have diplomatic relations with the regime in Iran, a lot of former members of the regime or affiliates or embezzlers, all sorts of people are getting into Canada from that regime. Some of the people that are supposed to be boycotted by the Trudeau government are in the immigration system right now trying to get citizenship. So there's a whole big thing going on where the Iranian regime community is actually very highly present in Canada, and that has to be dealt with as well, from just a Canadian perspective alone, not even an Iranian Canadian perspective.
Recently, Goldie Gamari, MPP for Carleton, joined us because she had participated in a march, I believe it was a couple of weeks ago now. And, I'd asked Goldie this question. I'd like to ask you this question, is Canada doing enough?
Mm-hmm. It's a tough question, of course. The Trudeau government does what it does for the reasons that they do it. Now, why did they sanction 10,000 members of the IRGC, the military ideological wing of the Iranian regime, but not list them in the terrorist group under the criminal code? There's a lot to be said about that. When I hear something like that, and I go to meetings with MPs from the Liberal Party, what I sense is, one, that Canada doesn't want to go alone into the international community with a fully oppositional stance. They want some support, and that's where I give the approach the Canadian government has taken some credit. But on the other side of it, when these type of regime agents are in Canada, they already have citizenship, a lot of them. So putting them on the criminal terrorist list would allow the law enforcement in Canada to actually confront ex-regime members or possibly people that are still selling technologies to that regime, nuclear technologies, or all sorts of cooperation that's happening, could be stopped by putting them onto the criminal terrorist list, because then we have a law enforcement approach against citizens that are cooperating with that regime, or non-citizens. But if we're only taking an immigration approach, as the Trudeau government is doing, then we're just, it's sort of a hunt. Who has citizenship, who doesn't, who's trying to get into the country, and it's a big mess. So I know this is a developing issue, and I do believe that there will be more developments by the Trudeau government, because the current state of affairs is quite messy.
Ram, will we see more people lose their lives in Iran over this issue?
Well, of course, because wherever, especially the cameras are not there, which is the majority of places, and where there's ethnic minorities involved, such as Baluchis, Kurdish, there is definitely easier machine gun hand of the Iranian government. They've been already extrajudicially killing people in prison. They've been killing minors. They don't. It's a religious war. Unfortunately, that's the whole problem. Is that you can cloak yourself as an anti-imperialist or of some sort, but really that has been used as a way to solidify a religious war inside and outside of the country in the name of God. And if it wasn't in the name of God, maybe things would have been different. But unfortunately, this is a religious war. And from the regime side, they have a lot of foot soldiers willing to kill. But there are also breaks in the regime itself. There's conflict within the regime that gives us some hope. But certainly there are enough people out there to just follow orders and torture, kill, rape. We've seen the news stories, and this is ongoing. And fear is the number one mechanism that the regime has operated. And it's only recently that even Iranians in Canada are finding the courage to speak up. So if we're scared all the way in Canada because of human rights violations, certainly the human rights violations are real, and they are occurring all over the country in Iran. And they will continue to occur, and the controversies are going to continue to surface into media all over the world.
Ram, I don't know if I'm just naive. I'll just never understand how faith or a belief in something leads you to kill another person. My mind won't let me get there.
It's unbelievable. I mean, it's power, it's money. We're talking about, solidifying power and solidifying an economy. So I do believe that it has a lot to do with power and economy. But then, average individuals in Iran, they always were religious, a big portion of the population. But now they're being pushed to, okay, or your religion is being threatened. You have to defend your religion. That's sort of the line that is being used. Everything is being considered an attack on their religion. and the government phrases everything as an attack on people's religion or their right to religion, whereas the protesters themselves say this is not about Islam. This is about getting justice for those people that were killed, and also having a government that doesn't engage in human rights violations. It's not about Islam. A lot of protesters are making that clear. But the government wants to keep the economy, keep the political power, and they're willing to phrase things and as a religious issue, as a violation of their people's rights for religion, or their supporters' rights for religion.
Ram, this is our first conversation, but let's not make it our last, okay?
No, I really appreciate you continuing to cover this. This is ongoing. As I said, it's relevant to the international community in Canada, and so I hope that we can, and you are supporting the media, a lot of politicians all over the world, people, ordinary people I see in protests, supporting this cause against extremism, and hoping that we can turn a new leaf in a few years where no religious extremism is in the political mainstream, and it becomes more of a sort of, tangential issue.
Thank you so much, Ram. Let's stay in touch, okay?
Yes, thank you for your time, and I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you. Ram Jubin joining us, VP of the Alliance of Iranian Canadians. Stay with us here on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
Hello, my name is Sean Duhame. And this is the Sean Duhame Trio. I hope you enjoyed.
We can be hurt. We can be bruised. We can be broken. Slowed down, confused, and even numbed. But we can't be defeated. We're built on a foundation that's strong, our mission unwavering, and together we'll beat as one.
I'm Derek Fage, and I encourage you to join me each and every weekday at 2 p.m. for an edition of Daytime Ottawa. We will share with you some fabulous stories, inspirational stories, and of course, recipes from local chefs. We'll tell you about some wonderful musical performances, introduce you to local businesses and charities, and so much more. Join us here on Daytime Ottawa at 2 p.m. weekdays with repeats at 6 and 11 p.m.
Hi, I'm Meg from AIM Fitness, and I'm here with my buddy Fit Finley. Join us every week for Fit Over 50. We'll take you through some low-impact and high-intensity workouts designed to improve your strength and your balance. All you'll need is a resistance band, some light hand weights, and also your water bottle and a sturdy chair. Tune in right here on Rogers TV and let us be part of your weekly routine.
I am Audrey. And I'm Leah. Leah inspired me to play hockey. The War Amp has helped me by giving me my devices I need to play hockey.
Audrey has an amputation similar to mine.
What does yours do? The stick clicks in it.
My device from the War Amp allows me to shoot a lot better. It rotates like a wrist, which helps a lot with shooting and stick handling.
When I score a goal, I feel really happy.
October 5th, 2014, my daughter was hit by a train. She was walking along the sides of the tracks, and it shattered her world.
Join me for Season 3 of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. Whew, that was a lot. I think I need a nap.
on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, of course, Halloween is happening on Monday night. But this weekend is a great opportunity to get connected with all sorts of activities happening in our community. We wanted to spend some time today with Christine McGuire, Executive Director at the Diefenbunker. Hi, Christine.
Hi, happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. You have a pretty cool job.
I absolutely do. Our team, we get to go in a once top secret underground bunker every single day.
That's really great. And you've been really creative over the years about encouraging people to come to the Diefenbunker, of course, in beautiful Carp. Give us a sense of what you have for the toddlers.
Yeah, so our annual Toddlers Halloween Hunt is back again this year at the Diefenbunker Museum. So this is a really great way to celebrate the Halloween season in a fun, safe, and indoor environment. So kids can search for stations throughout the bunker to find treats and crafts and other fun activities.
Well, that's fantastic. Give us all the details of how, if there's parents listening right now, they're thinking, oh, I want to get in on that. How can they find out more details?
Yeah, so the event runs today and tomorrow from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., and it's timed entry slots every 30 minutes. So we strongly encourage that you can book online just so you won't get disappointed. And it's $7 for everybody over the age of 5, and 5 and under is free entry. So yeah, come get dressed up in your favorite costumes and explore our 100,000 square foot underground museum with your little ones.
Well, that's fantastic. Have you seen any costumes yet? Any favorites?
Oh, there's a lot of dinosaurs and a lot of firefighters.
Right. Very popular. Popular. My daughter 1 year went as a gumball machine, and that was my favorite costume ever. She looks so cute.
Oh, absolutely. My daughter went as SpongeBob SquarePants last year.
There you go. I love it. And the Diefenbunker, there's always something happening, Christine. Can you give us a sense of what you have coming up as well?
Yes. So we have a new exhibition by artist in residence Christo Pantiras called Just in Case, an Enemy Within. So that's a special exhibition that's running from now to February of 2023. We have a speaker series with Dr. Andrew Birch from the War Museum talking about the Korean War in November. And we have lots of new activities and an 8-language audio guide. So really everything fun for the family and lots to do here.
Well, that's fantastic. Let's get caught up again and keep in touch with everything that's happening at the Diefenbunker.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you. Christine McGuire joining us, Executive Director at the Diefenbunker. What a great place to work. How cool would that be? I know someone else who absolutely loves their job, and that is Christine Trotzmandorf. Hi, Christine. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. How are you?
Great. Executive Director of Volunteer Ottawa. Did you get any sleep last night knowing the big galas tonight?
I slept well, and I am so excited about tonight. It's going to be a great evening.
It's certainly going to be a fun night. So the Voskers are tonight. And for those that maybe not have heard that term before, Christine, tell us what it's all about.
The Voskers is an annual celebration of volunteering in Ottawa, and it's a chance to celebrate all of the contributions, the time and talent that volunteers and organizations across the city bring to the community. So it's going to be a really exciting evening. It's an awards event, and we certainly have some winners and finalists to announce, but it's an opportunity to salute the work of volunteers in all the work that they do.
Christine, I'm just going to get my producer to check a little bit of the audio. We're having a difficult time hearing you, and we want to hear all of the details. So we're just going to put Christine from Volunteer Ottawa on hold there for a second. I am absolutely thrilled. This is my 4th or 5th year hosting this event, and the Voskers are always a highlight for me. We get to meet those people in our community that are just so dedicated to various causes, and some of the people that I have met at the Voskers I'm still in touch with all these years later and loving to follow the work that they're doing in the community. So tonight is a very special night that's taking place, and Christine and her team at Volunteer Ottawa have been working very, very hard to make sure tonight is very successful. So we look forward to a great night there tonight. I'm going to be heading down, I believe it's at the Shaw Centre tonight. I'm going to be heading down there around 6 o'clock, and it's always a great jam-packed evening. And we have Christine back. Hi, Christine.
Hi, is that better?
There you go. Yes, I can hear you clearly now. Christine, let's talk a little bit about who's receiving awards tonight.
Yes, we've got a great lineup. I can't tell you who's going to be receiving the awards, but I can tell you about some of the finalists in each of the categories.
For sure.
We've got young. One of the ones that really gets me excited is the young leader in volunteering, and the director of education at the Board of Education is going to be presenting that one. And we've got finalists, young people who have been really involved in leading volunteering at their schools. We've got the Zaina Karaki and Kaylin Aldridge, Nancy Sethi, they're all at Sir Robert Borden School, and Mateo Porras Gill, who is an amazing volunteer and leader at Orchestra, which is probably an organization you know well, Sam.
Yes, yes.
They're having a birthday today, I believe.
Oh, that's great. I love them. They're fantastic.
Yeah.
They're fantastic. And I know we're remembering somebody in our community that's dearly missed. Christine, speak a little bit about Marc Jolicoeur.
We are, Marc Jolicoeur is our Lifetime Achievement Award for 2022. And very sadly, he accepted the award in February earlier this year, but just before he passed away. And so it's going to be a very emotional evening, I think, but celebrating the incredible work that he did with the University of Ottawa, with the Ottawa Hospital. He was a very well-known and well-respected lawyer with Borden Ladner Gervais. So some of his former colleagues, people from the hospital, are going to be gathering tonight to pay tribute, and Lawrence Greenspan will be accepting the award on Marc's behalf.
It's going to be an emotional night for sure. I know Marc touched the lives of many, many people. I know how hard you and your team have worked, and I know you've probably got a few things left to do before the big night. So we'll let you go, Christine, but thank you so much, and I'll see you soon.
We will. You have a busy day, but we're really looking forward to seeing you on stage tonight and to be our host.
It's my honor, honestly. Thank you.
Thanks, Sam.
Christine, thank you. Christine Trotzmandorf joining us, Executive Director for Volunteer Ottawa. And it's always a big night in our city, and I'm so grateful to be part of it. We look forward to it. As I promised you, a 6-part series on the tragic murders that took place in the Ottawa Valley. If you can believe it, I can't believe how fast time goes. This is our 6th week. And when we come back, Pamela Cross and Aaron Lee will be here. They are incredible advocates for women in this community and in the Ottawa Valley. They're going to join me right after the break. Stay with us here on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
On the next episode of Simply Cooking by Chef, tacos aren't only for Tuesday. I make a Mexican taco feast for a crowd.
Every year, dozens of Canadians are killed or seriously injured because they take risks around railway tracks. Talk to your loved ones about rail safety. Visit stoptracktragedies.ca.
It isn't the heavy trays that make the job difficult, or the fast pace you need to keep up. It's not working another double because someone called in sick. What makes the job tough is the moment you realize a customer has had enough and you have to make that decision not to overserve. Refusing service isn't personal, it's the law. We know it's not easy, but we're counting on you to keep us all safe. Thank you, servers, for doing the tough job.
I'm Julian Armour from Music and Beyond. Join us for a new show this spring on Rogers called Music and Beyond Presents.
Salut tout le monde, je m'appelle Jessie Lindsay. Venez écouter mon spectacle Encore Ottawa 3 sur Rogers TV cette semaine. Hi everybody, come listen to my Encore Ottawa 3 show on Rogers TV this week. I hope you enjoy it.
1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
It's Thursday, October 27th. Good morning. I am Damilola Onime. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, it is partly cloudy, 5 degrees. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. The man running the Ontario Provincial Police has taken the stand in the public inquiry into the federal government's use of the Emergencies Act to deal with the convoy protests. City News parliamentary reporter Cormac McSweeney has the latest.
Ahead of the arrival of the convoy protest in Ottawa, the commissioner of the OPP, Thomas Carrique, says he understood that the Ottawa police actually had a very different plan than what was put in place. In fact, he said he was under the impression that they would be blocking vehicles from entering the downtown.
My understanding was that Ottawa Police Service had designated parking areas for the commercial motor vehicles, and that those commercial motor vehicles would be contained in these parking areas, and that they were running shuttle buses to transport participants to allow them to engage in lawful protest, and that they would not be permitting any large commercial motor vehicles into the parliamentary precinct.
But Creek says he didn't see the operational plan of the Ottawa Police because normally they wouldn't request such a thing unless they had direct involvement. He says if he had known that OPS would be allowing trucks into the core, he would have had more questions for the force and possibly would have offered resources to help with capacity to deal with that scenario. His witness summary also says that in the days leading up to the convoy's arrival, there were significant public safety concerns about protester discussions around access to weapons and talk of civil war. Cormac McSweeney, Parliament Hill.
With the weather forecast for Ottawa and the Valley, here is City News meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Any leftover showers will move on out. Varying amounts of sun and cloud for the most part today, and falling temperatures this morning. We've already reached our guaranteed high for the day. For the afternoon, we'll rebound a little bit, sit at about 10 degrees. So temperatures will be all over the place today. But we've already reached that guaranteed high. Brisk wind out of the northwest. Tonight, mainly clear, quite cool, down to -1. For today, already reached our guaranteed high for the afternoon, near 10.
City News time is 11:02. The returning mayor in Smiths Falls says he is hitting the ground running to get residents what they want. He tells Wake Up with Rob Snow one of the big issues he will focus on this term is replacing the underground pipes in Smiths Falls.
We've got water mains that are old and leaky, and we've known the changes we've made in recent times that allowed us to, at one point in time, we were only collecting revenue for 1/3 of the water we were producing. That's now about 2/3. We need to keep fixing that and getting more capacity in our wastewater plant because we're really in a period of growth.
Pankal says they'll also be working on making Smiths Falls safer for residents, build more pedestrian crossovers and affordable housing for residents. A local MPP has charged one Kingston man after he was found in a stopped vehicle with blood alcohol levels reaching over 80 plus. Leeds OPP located Douglas Whaley's vehicle stopped on the side of Highway 401 near Lansdowne, where he was unresponsive when officers approached him, but they were able to wake him up. Police determined that he had consumed alcohol and he was arrested. He's charged with 2 different counts of operation with him while impaired and 2 counts of failing to comply with a probation order. He has been released from police custody and is due to appear in court next month. Prince Harry's highly anticipated memoir will hit the shelves on January 10th. The book will be called Spare, and publisher Penguin Random House describes it as an account told with raw, unflinching honesty and filled with insight, revelation, self-examination, and hard-won wisdom about the eternal power of love over grief. The 416-page book will come out in 16 languages from Dutch to Portuguese. I am Damilola Onime. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, September 22nd of 2022 marked 7 years since 3 women, Carol Culleton, Anastasia Cusack, and Natalie Warmondam, lost their lives at the hands of a former partner. It took 7 years for an inquiry to happen, and there was 86 recommendations from that inquest. And it's an opportunity for the last 6 weeks. I can't believe it's 6 weeks. Today is the last part of our series. The last 6 weeks, we've had an opportunity to really talk about what these recommendations were, what everybody's role in these recommendations are. Because my fear when this inquiry ended, because we've seen this happen with inquiries before. The inquiry happens, all of the recommendations are made, and then it just seems like they sit on a shelf. I picture them in a big binder sitting somewhere, and everybody goes, well, that inquiry is over, and we're done with that, and there's nothing left to do. When the real truth of it is when the recommendations happen, that's when the work begins. We wanted to spend some time today with Pamela Cross, Canadian feminist lawyer and women's advocate, and Erin Lee from Lanark Interval House. And you've both joined me before. You have been incredibly generous with your time over the last 6 weeks and helping us connect with other people in the community. So first of all, Erin, I want to thank you very much for that.
Good morning, Sam. It was my honor.
Thank you. I appreciate
to make sure that this inquest continues to move people toward change.
And let me ask you, I mean, we've talked about a number of the different recommendations. There's 86 of them, Erin. We keep repeating that over and over again. Is there one or two that you would like to highlight today that maybe haven't gotten the attention over the last number of weeks?
I think that all of them are very worthy and valuable. I think that recommendations related to systemic change that can create meaningful change for victims of violence are critical. And we need our government partners to push those recommendations to fruition.
Is it hard to get their attention, Erin, with everything else going on in the world?
I think it's not hard to get their attention. I think it's more challenging for them to find their political will to invest in concrete solutions.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. Pamela, let me ask you this. We've spoke together over the last number of weeks as well. Last week we had a great conversation, and I want to really speak today about the legal side of this. You sat through this inquiry. How challenging was that for you, Pamela?
Well, lawyers aren't supposed to let their emotions come to the surface too often, but I can say quite honestly that being present for the 3 weeks of the inquest was one of the most emotionally demanding pieces of work I've ever done.
Mm-hmm. And how were you supported through that, Pamela?
Oh, extremely well. For one thing, the inquest, those who organized the inquest did a really good job of creating a trauma-informed approach. The presiding officer over the inquest, a lawyer named Leslie Riom, was fantastic at making sure people felt safe and comfortable. There were mental health workers available if anybody needed that kind of support. And we had friends and allies there, not every day, not the same people every day, but every day there were friends and allies there, and that made a huge, huge difference.
Mm-hmm. Really important for sure. I think we sometimes forget about that, right, Pamela? The people that are doing this work, and it can be very, very challenging. Erin, when we think about all of the initiatives that have happened, I know there was a beautiful monument to these beautiful women created as well, and that was shared 7 years after that horrific day. What else can we do? I mean, obviously the recommendations are there, and I really want to try and empower people today, each and every one of us, to do something with these recommendations, because there really is, I've read them all, there is a place for us, even though we're on the outside of this, regular listeners here to City News or viewers at Rogers TV. There's a place for all of us here, Erin.
I agree 100%. I am sitting in an Elmont parking lot at a youth conference with over 100 youth from area high schools. And before I came to do the radio show, I spoke to them about the inquest. And I encouraged them to read the 86 recommendations that have been made, to pick one that speaks to them and look at how they can take action to ensure that the lives of Carol and Anastasia and Natalie are not forgotten, and that we continue to take action and mobilize in our community.
Because it really does start with young people, doesn't it, Erin, in many ways? Because, you know, this cycle of abuse, it has to be stopped somewhere.
I agree that the cycle of violence is something that is secular, and people don't necessarily know that they have the right to make a choice to get out of those situations. And I think that courage and empowering young people to have conversation, to think about safety, to think about safety planning, and to talk about consent and all of the issues that contribute to unhealthy relationships, it's important that we do that.
Right, because I think a lot of young people, it's hard to define what's a healthy relationship, right?
I think that it's incredibly difficult. COVID has made it difficult. I think that social media creates all kinds of different kind of nuances in relationships, and I think that the recommendations speak to the realities of how we engage publicly, how we create campaigns to inform our community, and how we band together and unite to create system change.
And Pamela, we talk a lot, obviously, about, you know, the men that have committed these crimes. And as you know, Pamela, I refuse to say the name of the person that committed these crimes because I just don't want to give one breath to that person ever. So, but I want to talk about, you know, there are men that commit these crimes, but there are the majority, vast majority of men that would never, ever do this, never, ever harm a woman, abuse a woman. What role do those men have? What role do all men have in making sure that this is stopped?
There's a huge role for men. In many ways, men need to start to speak up, not just about these recommendations, but anytime they hear a man making a sexist joke or behaving in a way that's misogynist, men have to really embrace in a meaningful way the kinds of changes we need to make about how tasks within families are apportioned between the spouses. There's a lot of work men can do. And I think if I can just build on what Erin said a minute ago, one of the things I'm finding really powerful right now with respect to the recommendations in particular is how many people who don't have a formal connection to violence against women work are saying, we want to be involved. Tell us what to do. I'm speaking in communities, especially rural communities, all across Ontario this month, and people are very, very keen to know what they can do to support implementation of the recommendations. And we're trying to make it as easy as possible for those folks, especially for people who might never have done something like this before. People can go to the Luke's Place website, lukesplace.ca, and they'll find a toolkit there with template letters they can use to write to their MPP or to write to the Attorney General. All kinds of ideas to assist regular folks who want to be part of making this inquest mean something in the long run.
Really important. Thank you for adding that, Pamela. Erin, if you could take the last 6 weeks of these conversations and send them to somebody, all of these recordings, who would you want to hear this past 6 weeks?
I would send them to the media, and I would suggest that the media hold themselves accountable to reduce victim blaming and to ensure that the recommendations and the issues that face women in violent situations stays in the media so that the public can consume the information and think about their role and the actions that they can take.
I know recently there was a media release that went out from a law enforcement agency, and a woman had been killed. And it was, the words came out that it said it was an unprovoked attack. And that really stirred up a lot of people because it was, you know, it was victim blaming, wasn't it, Erin?
It is absolutely victim blaming. And until we shift our language and start to look at victims as people first and look at calling it what it is in terms of the accountability on abusers and naming those issues, we're not going to be able to see it, name it, change it. When we think about the See It, Name It, Change It campaign, we see stuff every day, the general public. Fewer of us will name it, and until we start to find our courage to name it, we're not going to change it. We need to shift language and call femicide femicide. We need people to understand and be educated about why we say the word femicide, because it's targeted violence against women as victims.
We're going to come back with Pamela Cross, Canadian feminist lawyer and women's advocate, and Erin Lee, Executive Director of Lanark Interval House, in a minute, and have one last opportunity to talk about this in our series, our 6-week series. And I hope you stay with us. Really important conversation today. Stay with us on Rogers TV and City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
I'm Nicole Martin, the proud ambassador for the Comfort Bear program. Comfort Bears provide these cuddly bears to local children who are terminally ill, facing trauma, or battling a serious illness. Every $20 donation will place a Comfort Bear into the loving arms of a child involved in our program. It is our hope to distribute 1,000 bears in 2022. Please join us and provide comfort to kids in their time of need.
What do I like? I like open fires, moonlit nights, chatty letters, rainy days. I like daydreaming. I love this colorful little island of ruby, emerald, and sapphire. Yet often my dark moods come. I'm possessed body and soul by this depression. They say women shouldn't write. Some days I almost give up. But I cannot contain my imagination. I made Anne real. I gave her my love of nature, my love of books, and my childhood dreams. My greatest happiness would be to climb the alpine path and write upon it a woman's humble name.
Lucy Maud Montgomery battled depression, rejection.
Tragically, just over 7 years ago, by a former partner, and we wanted to bring attention to this. This is, if you can believe it, I can't believe it, this is the last segment of a 6-week series that we've been doing. We've dedicated a half an hour a week on this particular topic and the recommendations that came out of the inquest, which took a long time to happen, but the recommendations are here now. We want to see them put into play. We wanted to spend some more time today with Erin Lee from Lanark Interval House and Pamela Cross, Canadian lawyer and women's advocate. Pamela, let's start with you. You know, there's so many opportunities for change here. Where does it start? I mean, I know there's been conversations with the province. There's been conversations with other levels of government. But who are you looking for specifically to target, to say, today we need you to take the next step, because then it's going to allow others to step forward?
That's not really a simple question to answer. In some ways, I echo what Aaron said a few minutes ago. We really need to engage the public, and part of doing that is to engage the media. You've been incredibly supportive by offering this series. I think that politicians, who are ultimately the ones who will be making many of the decisions about these recommendations, are influenced by what their voters tell them. And so we need to engage the public. But obviously, we also need to make sure that key players in the government understand why implementation of these recommendations is so important. And if I can talk about just one recommendation as an example of that, sure. I think Kirsten mentioned this last week. But there's a recommendation that a joint government public committee be established to oversee implementation of the recommendations from this inquest, to make sure that all of the recommendations are given comprehensive and careful consideration. I wouldn't like to say that if only one recommendation could be implemented. I don't want to pick one out of the 86, but this is a critical starting point. Because if that committee were to be established, that would be a starting point for keeping an eye on how all of the other recommendations are moving along.
Thank you for that, Pamela. Aaron, we know a big complicating factor of these murders was the fact, it was in a rural community, lots of space between homes and all of those things that go with being spread out in a wide area. What have you heard from women over the last 7 years since these murders have taken place about abuse happening in their communities? I mean, is this something you're seeing a lot, even though these tragic murders took place in the Ottawa Valley?
I think absolutely. We continue to hear that the numbers of violent acts have increased, especially since the onset of COVID. We certainly have seen that the See It, Name It, Change It campaign has created an opportunity to have more conversation with women. And I think we in our community in Lanark County are working towards solutions with our police services by installing various alarms, dash cams, and other tools that we can offer our justice partners so that women can be kept safer and have more immediate access to response. When you live in a geographic area that's rural, women will tell you, you call 911 and it can take 40 minutes before the police are able to respond, just by virtue of geography. So we need to be mindful of those realities and look at how we safety plan differently in rural communities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, brilliant. Absolutely. It's such an important piece. And Pamela, when you look back on the inquest and all of the time and effort that was spent, and the people that put their lives on hold to be part of that inquest, at the end of the day, we have all these recommendations. But the inquest as a whole, what kind of impact do you think that made, not only in the Ottawa Valley, but in the capital and potentially even around the country?
Certainly, the most important impact that the inquest can have is if the recommendations are implemented. But even before we see what that outcome is, I think there's no doubt that the inquest has already had a significant impact, and indeed right across the country. There was excellent media attention paid to the inquest. Stories were running daily, not just in regional or provincial media, but in national media. It overlapped with the Nova Scotia Mass Casualty Commission, which in July was looking at the issue and the relationship between intimate partner violence and mass casualty disasters. And so I think that the awareness of the general public in this country has already been raised by virtue of the inquest having happened. And whether or not the government chooses to move on implementing the recommendations, there will be more people in their communities who are paying attention, who are, as Aaron's campaign says, seeing it, calling it out, taking steps to support and be there for women who are in abusive relationships.
Mm-hmm. And what do you need from us, Aaron, at the Lanark Interval House? How can we help?
I think that it's important to know that we need to continue to use our media voices and our media outlets and people like you, Sam, who want to continue to move the momentum of the issues of intimate partner violence forward. I think we need opportunities to continue to converse. I think we should come back and talk about updates and report on what's happening with the recommendations and continue to be reaching out and educating our community. And if we can work together to pressure those that need to be pressured in order for the realities of these recommendations to be seen to fruition, I think uniting that way would be amazing for our communities, especially highlighting the rural realities for women and for change for everyone.
As long as they give me a mic, Aaron, you and Pam and all of your group will always have time with me, that's for sure.
Much appreciated.
So Pamela, we've honestly we only have a minute left. What would you like to leave us with today in terms of how we can all move forward?
The final recommendation that the jury made was for the parties to the inquest to gather again on the anniversary of the date of the verdict, which is the 28th of June. I would like people to keep paying attention to that date, to watch government action between now and then very carefully, and be prepared to join us, if not in person, virtually, when we do come together for that conversation, and be ready to call the government out if it hasn't taken significant steps by then to implement the recommendation.
Let's work together on that date, okay? Let's work up to that date together. I'm so grateful for every single person that joined me for the last 6 weeks to put a focus on this, this inquest and obviously the recommendations. I owe a lot of gratitude to all of you, and I'm hoping that, maybe we've inspired somebody to seek help. Maybe we've inspired somebody to think differently. Maybe we've inspired somebody, to stop abusing somebody. There's just so much that could possibly have come out of this 6 weeks. I hope that something has come out of it, but for me, I have learned a lot. As you know, it's very emotional for me. I have learned a lot, and I'm hoping we can keep the memory of Carol Culleton, Anastasia Cusick, and Natalie Warmendam alive. Thank you so much to both of you.
Thank you for doing this.
Appreciate your time. Pamela Cross joining us, of course, Canadian feminist lawyer and women's advocate, Aaron Lee from the Lanark Interval House, speaking about the tragic murders of those three beautiful women. And we're going to be working now towards the next date, and that's June 28th, the anniversary of this inquiry. We're going to be keeping the pressure on to get these recommendations not only to be sitting on paper, but to be put into action. Stay with us here on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Join me for Season 3 of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. Whew, that was a lot. I think I need a nap.
On the next episode of Simply Cooking by Chef, tacos aren't only for Tuesday. I make a Mexican taco feast for a crowd.
After a night out with your friends, there's always options for getting home safely. You could call your BFF, your mom or dad, whoever you can count on for a safe ride home. You could call your favorite cab company or 1-888 taxi guy. Or you could use the Arrive Alive smartphone app to help you choose your ride. Be it a friend, transit, or taxi, getting home safely is app easy. Now available for iOS and Android devices. Visit arrivealive.org to find out more. Arrive Alive. Drive sober.
Once upon a time, in a nursery rhyme, there were 3 bears. 1, 2, 3 bears. And they went a-walking in the cool woods a-talking.
Rogers TV invites you to let your imagination roam as we present Ottawa storytellers. Each week, we'll present a collection of original creative stories and inspirations for children of all ages. Join us for Ottawa Storytellers on Rogers TV.
Every year, dozens of Canadians are killed or seriously injured because they take risks around railway tracks. Talk to your loved ones about rail safety. Visit stoptracktragedies.ca.
Salut tout le monde, je m'appelle Jessie Lindsay. Venez écouter mon spectacle Encore Ottawa 3 sur Rogers TV cette semaine. Hi everybody, come listen to my Encore Ottawa 3 show on Rogers TV this week. I hope you enjoy it.
And the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
It's Thursday, October 27th. Good morning. I am Damilola Unime. Right now in Ottawa, partly cloudy, 6 degrees. In Smiths Falls, it is 5. And here's what's making news this hour. OPP Commissioner Thomas Carrick is testifying today at the public inquiry into the Liberal government's decision to invoke the Emergencies Act for the first time in Canadian history. And we're learning that the RCMP Commissioner Brenda Lucki sent the OPP a text message just a week after the anti-COVID-19 mandate protesters arrived in this city to say the federal government was losing or had already lost confidence in the local police force. The text messages exchanged between Carrick and Lucki on February 5, in which the RCMP commissioner also said she was having a hard time trying to calm down federal cabinet ministers seen bouncing castles in downtown Ottawa, were submitted to the public inquiry. And gas prices are trending up again across the country. The price in the Ottawa area went up 7 cents at midnight to just shy of $1.74 per litre for regular unleaded. The price is set to go up another 3 cents tomorrow. Gas experts are warning that it might not be too long before we hit the $2 a litre mark again. City News time is 11:32. I am Damilola Unime. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
When I had this opportunity to start hosting this show, July 5th of 2021, I wanted to talk about the tough stuff. I wanted to talk about things that people weren't talking about. I felt it was my responsibility, and I definitely feel a responsibility to other mums. And one of those mums is Sally Lane. Hi, Sally.
Hi, Sam.
Sally, you have had an incredible story to tell, and it's a tragic story. Your son, Jack, is in Syria, in a Syrian prison, and you've been with us here a lot on City News. But for those that haven't heard your story, can you give us a little bit of a snapshot into this story? And then I want to talk about some developments, Sally.
Yes, my son, Jack Letts, has been detained in a prison in northeast Syria for the past 5 years. It's an arbitrary detention, which means he's being held on no charge. And he's being held alongside 44 other Canadians in camps and prisons in Syria, which are made up of men, women, and children. So there's about 6 men, 10 women, and about 20 children who are held in camps in dire conditions. And most of the children are under the age of 6.
When's the last time you've heard your son's voice?
I haven't heard Jack's voice in 5 years. Well, actually 5.5 years now. That was July 2017, and I haven't seen him himself in up to 9 years.
It's just heartbreaking. Sally, there have been some developments this week on the story as a whole. Can you bring us up to date?
Yes, there was a major development this week with news of 4 repatriations from the camps in Syria. That was 2 women and 2 children were brought back. One was Kimberly Pullman, who is probably the most high-profile female detainee. She was flown back along with Umema Shui and Umema's 2 children. They were flown by U.S. military jets to Montreal, and then Kimberly was flown on to BC, and Umema remains in Montreal.
And my understanding is there's some legal developments there as well. But what I really want to focus on today is these women are back on Canadian soil. We understand they have been detained. What is the hope now for the rest of the Canadians that are left in Syria? Is there hope for Jack, Sally?
Yeah, well, we're hoping now that this change in action by the government actually represents a change in their policy, which up until now has been complete non-intervention in repatriation. And it's the first time that Canadian officials have been publicly involved in facilitating repatriations from Syria since Amira, the orphan, was brought back to Canada in 2020. And it's also the first time that a Canadian government official, Sebastien Beaulieu from the Canadian Embassy in Beirut, has allowed himself to be photographed at an official delegation meeting in northeast Syria where the detainees were formally handed over by the Kurdish administration. And this has happened with several other countries in the past months. One country after another have been repatriating their citizens. Canada has been an outlier in this respect. So finally, Canada is actually enacting repatriations, which begs the question, if they can do it for Kimberly and Umema, they can now do it for all the other Canadians who are also detained.
Mm-hmm. What are the conditions that Jack is living in right now, Sally?
Jack's conditions are actually even worse than the women and children because they have absolutely no contact with the outside world. We were told by the Canadian government that if we had to prove that the conditions were bad in order for them to be allowed to be brought back. So, for instance, Kimberly Pullman was able to contact the outside world. She was able to get a medical assessment, which was then flown back to Global Affairs Canada. But for the men, that's not possible because there's no access into the prison. So our only knowledge of the conditions that he's under are from when he was able to communicate with us. And those conditions were no bed, not enough beds for people, so people are sleeping on the floor, so very serious overcrowding. 400 men died of TB in 2019 in the prisons. There's not enough food, there's not enough water. I did see one photograph of an Australian detainee a couple of days ago, and he's been in detention in one of the similar prisons for 3.5 years, and he looked dreadful. And that photograph was taken in August of this year, and the Australian interviewer who interviewed him said that he was emaciated and pale and ill, and that's what I have to imagine for Jack.
I can't imagine, Sally, what that's like. I mean, even just getting to know you, and we've never met in person, but even getting to know you on air here, I mean, my heart aches thinking about what Jack is going through. Your case is very sort of complicated because Jack had a British passport and a Canadian passport, but British officials turned their backs on Jack.
Yes, they did. I mean, that is actually the reason that I moved to Canada in early 2020, because the British government revoked his citizenship in 2019. And when I spoke to the Foreign Office in Britain, they said there was no point in talking to them any longer because Jack was no longer British. So I've been focusing all my kind of energies and efforts on on Global Affairs Canada here, the Foreign Ministry here, they have been very unresponsive. I've been trying to get a meeting with them ever since I arrived, and they've refused. I mean, I live 10 minutes from the Foreign Ministry office, and we've received very, very little information from them. So this development now is a big break in what has happened to date.
There's been reports, Sally, that Jack was involved in crime. And I know that that's hard to hear. Is that something that you think is deterring the Canadian government from giving you any sort of time with them?
No, I think actually the opposite would be true. I think if there was evidence that Jack had been involved in crime, that he would have been one of the first to be brought back and prosecuted, because we've always said just bring them back out of these life-threatening conditions, and that if they have done anything wrong, then charge them and put them through the justice system here. But you can't leave people in a legal limbo situation where they have no access to a justice system, and they're just held in conditions that the UN has said are cruel, inhumane, degrading, and akin to torture. And how can the Canadian government support that? I read yesterday that the position of the government now, their stated position from their public safety minister, Marco Mendicini, is that the government should decide who is allowed to come back and who isn't. And that's what this whole court case is about, that is due to take place in, December now. But you can't say who is allowed to live and who is allowed to die. We have a justice system here in Canada, and that's shown actually with the cases just of the two that have already come back. So right. Kimberly Pullman has been placed on a peace bond, which means that she's I think she was held in detention for one night, and she was placed before a judge, and then she is released, and there are no charges against her. With Umema, there does appear the government says that there is some evidence that they have against her, so it means that charges have been laid, and she is currently awaiting a trial date. Her children, it's understood, have been taken into care, but the family is expected to step in after that. And actually what's not generally appreciated in all this is that there is a whole plan for the reception and treatment of returnees that's been in place for 4 years. Parliament voted in 2018 for such a plan to be put together, and that involves welfare agencies and health boards and psychological assessment centres, as well as law enforcement. And because these detainees, they've been subject to severe physical and mental trauma in their years of neglect and deprivation, and they're going to need a lot of medical and psychological help to recover.
Do you think the labeling of Jack by the British media has affected the way that Jack has been treated?
Yeah, it's had a huge effect, and it's been very, very difficult to counter all the lies and the tabloid stuff that has been said about him, which is made up. It's not based on evidence. And Lawrence Greenspan, the lawyer for the group action case, said yesterday that there is no evidence against the men, and the interviewer then said, "Well, it's difficult to get evidence," and he responded, "Well, you can't let people rot."
No,
because you think they might be dangerous people. As it is, serial murderers have more rights than people who are held on suspicion that they might be dangerous people. And we said if there's evidence, they've had 8 years now to collect evidence, and there was a huge focus on Jack, of course, because of the trial that John, my husband, and I went through in sending money to him. And even in that forensic examination of his activities in Syria, there was no evidence. The police told us there's no evidence that he's done anything wrong.
Sally, will Jack be in your arms again, do you think? Do you still have hope?
I'm hoping it will come sooner rather than later. I mean, people are coming back now. We believe that these 4 repatriations are finally the government admitting that it has obligations to its citizens, and that includes Jack.
Oh, I hope so, Sally. I hope so.
Thank you.
Oh, Sally Lane joining us. Her son, of course, Jack, is in Syria. And Sally, let's stay in touch, okay? I appreciate Sally joining us today, and I know we'll keep in touch. Sally and I touch base every number of weeks, and Matthew Behrens as well has been such a great advocate as well. So when we come back, we're going to spend some time today with Eric Alper. Join us here on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
I'm Derek Fage, and I encourage you to join me each and every weekday at 2 p.m. for an edition of Daytime Ottawa. We will share with you some fabulous stories, inspirational stories, and of course, recipes from local chefs. We'll tell you about some wonderful musical performances, introduce you to local businesses and charities, and so much more. Join us here on Daytime Ottawa at 2 p.m. weekdays with repeats at 6 and 11 p.m.
When an impaired driver killed my brother DJ, some people used the A word. They called it an accident, but it wasn't. An accident implies that no one was at fault. But when someone impaired by alcohol and/or drugs chooses to drive, they're fully responsible for the crash that can result. So please, for the memory of my brother DJ and the thousands of families whose lives have been shattered by impaired drivers, let's drop the A word.
A crash caused by impaired driving is not an accident.
After a 2-year hiatus, we are back with brand new episodes of Celebrate Ottawa starting this fall. We showcase remarkable people highlighting the city's diversity in arts, culture, sports, and nature. We will show you features that will entertain you and will even teach you new things. Join me, your host, Lila Grind, as we explore and celebrate Ottawa.
Donations to the War Amps have a lasting impact on amputees. Today, your support gives them the artificial limbs and resources they need for everyday activities and learning to live with amputation. Having access to our essential programs helps amputees prepare for tomorrow on their road to independence. The War Amps is committed to improving the quality of life for Canadian amputees, but this wouldn't be possible without you. To learn how your donation helps, visit waramps.ca.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
Hello, my name is Sean Duhame. And this is the Sean Duhame Trio. I hope you enjoyed.
on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Elper, publicist and music commentator. We wanted to start you off right today, Eric.
Yeah, there's no better way to start up any segment or end any segment or have somewhere in the middle the Beatles being played.
Absolutely. Let's talk about rock's best final albums, and we played the Beatles for a reason.
Yeah, this was my choice. There's so many reasons why bands split up, but mostly because of the fact that they're family. And they get sick of one another, just like you and I get sick of our own family members sometimes. Sometimes somebody in the band passes away and dies, sometimes that they just run out of steam. But for the Beatles, it was just a little bit different, though, because of the fact that, as we saw in the Get Back documentary that came out, this was their final album, but it wasn't their final album to be recorded. They were actually recording the album Get Back, which then became Let It Be, and they had such a good time recording it that they said, well, let's just go back in the studio and keep going, and that's what they created, was Abbey Road. But they needed to release this album kind of first, and then Let It Be came out after 1970. So it's a very bizarre way to do things, but that was the Beatles for you.
It's amazing, right? I mean, this history, I don't even know how you remember all this, Eric, honestly.
Because I don't remember anything else other than this stuff and then barely my phone number.
There you go. Perfect. What other albums are top of mind for you today?
Yeah, I think, when you're talking about the way to go out and the way to kind of, make people remember you forever and ever and ever, the way that David Bowie released his last album, Black Star, back in 2016, was creepy and brilliant all at the same time. It was his 25th album, and it came out on David Bowie's 69th birthday, January the 8th, 2016, and then he died 2 days later from cancer that nobody outside of maybe a handful of people knew he was fighting against. So the fact that we got this Black Star album, it was critically acclaimed, and then had to deal with his death, made it seem like it was more of a theatrical performance than anything else. So it was kind of the way that, Bowie is, brilliant, creepy, and scary, and beautiful all at the same time.
Absolutely. All that put together for sure. And other albums that are top of mind for you?
Yeah, when you're talking about kind of creepy and sometimes like music is, the way that Lynyrd Skynyrd ended their kind of first batch of their career, there's an album called Street Survivors that they released back in 1977, and it was, a pretty solid record, even though that the band had kind of tapered off in terms of popularity, but the band was photographed in front of flames on a street, and there were just, it was like standing kind of like in a ring of fire, and it turned out that that was going to be their last album because right after the release of this record, several members of the band were killed in a plane crash that killed 6 people, including Ronnie Van Zant and guitarist Steve Gaines. So not only was the album called Street Survivors, which is kind of bizarre enough, but the fact that the album cover showed them in a ball of flames was just, I think, a little bit too much for even the family to handle.
Okay, I'm a little creeped out, to be honest with you. That's a bit bizarre. I had no idea, of course.
Yeah, and sometimes it's not even creepy. Sometimes it's the band's still in their own form. They just kind of are done, but they record more music. In the case of the Police's Synchronicity from 1983, one of that year's biggest albums, and certainly one of rock music's biggest records of the decade. That's the album that has Every Breath You Take and Wrapped Around Your Finger and King of Pain on it. The band were just simply sick of one another. In fact, there was just fights going going on almost daily in the studio between Sting and Andy Sumner, the guitarist, and Stuart Copeland, the drummer. But they all went on to pretty great solo careers working with other people. So it's not like that we lost this band forever. We might have lost the band, but the members still kind of continued on. They weren't sick of making music. I think that they were just really sick of each other.
Right. Let's go back to 1971. I'm a 1971 baby. So let's head back to 1971 and talk a little Janis Joplin.
Yeah, Janis Joplin, this has a really interesting Canadian connection as well, because she was recording with the band Big Brother and the Holding Company for years. They kind of went up the same ranks together in San Francisco. And then she went on a kind of festival express train festival ride with a whole bunch of other artists, and they stopped at various places in Canada in order to perform. And this festival was later filmed and airing later on. That band became her backing band for her last album called Pearl, which was released in 1971. 3 days after she recorded a song called Mercedes-Benz, which was the final song on the album, she passed away at the age of 27 from a drug overdose. And it was around the same time that the age 27 was getting pretty popular when it came to superstar artists dying. You had Janis Joplin passing away at that age, Jimi Hendrix, Brian Jones, Jim Morrison, and then later on, Kurt Cobain and Amy Winehouse, and then you have that, so-called 27 Club. But Janis Joplin was right in there, and I think one can only imagine what a brilliant career she would have had throughout the 70s.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I am so grateful for you, and I'm so happy. I know our producers have talked to you about coming here every Thursday to talk a little music with us, and we're so grateful, Eric.
Oh, happy to do it. I've got a star right beside the meeting request every single week. It's this is Sam's. This is Sam's time. Thanks so much for having me.
You're very sweet. Eric Alper, of course, publicist and music commentator. And you know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking we should go out with a little Police here on City News and Rogers TV.
October 5th, 2014, my daughter was hit by a train. She was walking along the sides of the tracks, and it shattered her world.
Join me for Season 3 of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. Whew, that was a lot. I think I need a nap.
The regulars, the guys who keep this place in business. Last week, they had something to celebrate. Jason had just finished university. So they toasted his profs, his TAs, his old roommates. Well, they toasted just about everyone. But I worry about and take care of my guys. So even when I know they're not driving, sometimes that means bringing them a little surprise. And then they had a drink to me.
Brought to you by Smart Serve Ontario and Arrive Alive, Drive Sober.
There we go. Hey, going back in, okay?
It's a new season of The New Fly Fisher on Rogers TV.
On the next episode of Simply Cooking by Chef, tacos aren't only for Tuesday. I make a Mexican taco feast for a crowd.
Every year, dozens of Canadians are killed or seriously injured because they take risks around railway tracks. Talk to your loved ones about rail safety. Visit stoptracktragedies.ca.
local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
It's Thursday, October 27. Good afternoon. I am Damilola Unime. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, it is 6 degrees, and here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. The man running the Ontario Provincial Police has taken a stand in the public inquiry into the federal government's use of the Emergencies Act to deal with the Freedom Convoy protesters. City News parliamentary reporter Cormac McSweeney has more.
More light is being shed on the behind-the-scenes discussions among police and politicians around the convoy protest through text messages and statements presented as evidence. An OPP deputy commissioner feared another Washington event and expressed significant public safety concerns around protester discussions about weapons and civil war. Now, he'd also claimed that the Ottawa Police Command was the most unorganized they had ever seen. OPP Commissioner Thomas Carrique says he also had concerns with the then police chief Peter Slowly's demand for 1,800 officers in order to clear out the protesters.
I had a concern that this request was made in the public, that it was made politically, that by Ottawa, the city of Ottawa indicating they needed 1,800 officers to resolve this matter. That showed that Ottawa police was overwhelmed.
We're also learning more about the federal response through text messages between the RCMP Commissioner Brenda Lucki and Carrique that come from February 5th. She suggests at that time the federal government was already discussing the Emergencies Act. Cormac McSweeney, Parliament Hill.
With the weather forecast for Ottawa and the Valley, here is City News meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Falling temperatures with a brisk wind out of the northwest and varying amounts of sun and cloud for most areas today. We've already reached the guaranteed high. We'll have falling temperatures, rebound a little bit to about 10 degrees for the afternoon, down to -1 overnight. Tomorrow, sun and cloud near 11, and highs on the weekend warmer again, 14 to about 16 degrees with plenty of sunshine. For today, for the afternoon, near 10.
City News time is 12:02. Safer roads, affordable housing, and adding new streets and rehabilitating old ones are some of the things that Smiths Falls residents can expect in this new council term. This is according to the mayor of Smiths Falls, Sean Pankow. He tells City News he will be focusing on advancing the policies that he kicked off before his re-election.
Trying to ensure we have more pedestrian crossovers. We passed a active transportation complete streets policy last term, so focusing on that when we are expanding, and support for our community affordable housing is still a critical issue. As you know, elsewhere we made big strides this term from a policy standpoint with zoning bylaws and a attainable housing community improvement plan. Now we need to fund that to make sure it makes a difference.
And the current term of council ends on November 15th. Gas prices are going up again, a similar theme as we've seen this entire week. City News reporter Chris Curry with more on where the price per litre might end up.
16 cents over a 3-day span, including another 3 cents tonight. But will it continue like this?
Beyond this week, that's very difficult to say.
Dan McTeague, the president of Canadians for Affordable Energy, does say it's very likely to reach that dreaded toonie per litre number.
Between what we're seeing today and where we could be in the next 2 months, over the course of the next month and a half to 2 months, I think $2 a litre is very possible.
He explains to City News why that might happen.
All of these things are contingent on when winter truly begins and, of course, how cold it gets.
Chris Curry's City News.
I am Damilola Unime. And for news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Connecting you and your community. This is the Sam Laprade Show on City News
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, we've started to do lunch a little bit differently, and we're so happy that you're going to have lunch with us today. We invited to the table Wendy Muckle and Peter Tilley, of course, and this is an opportunity to connect with community members every day and talk about those topics that are top of mind for so many. Wendy Muckle, CEO of Ottawa Inner City Health. Hello, Wendy.
Hi, Sam. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Peter Tilley, of course, CEO of the Ottawa Mission. Welcome, Peter.
Well, thank you for having me.
This is, once again, top of mind for me, especially during this election. Wendy, we heard a lot about, affordable housing and how to, work with, trying to cure the homeless situation in this city. Is it hard to get your messages to political figures, or did you feel like you had some of that happen during this past municipal election?
I guess I would say that I feel like the candidates locally took the issue seriously, and many of the candidates did actually have a platform around homelessness. I don't feel like the message is getting through to the provincial government, and definitely the provincial government seems to be focusing on one piece of the housing sector, I guess perhaps believing that it will improve things in other sectors, but there's, past evidence would show that's not the case, and we need a strategy for, the different kinds of housing that we're going to need to house everybody in the community.
Mm-hmm. And how did you get your messages across to our incoming mayor and council? How are you going to do that, Peter?
Well, again, I'm with Wendy that what an improvement this election versus the election of 4 years ago, where we had one of the candidates standing on the market shouting, "These shelters have to go," pointing to homeless people who are on the street saying, "Look at this." So it's nice that now we're beyond that, and all candidates had some form of a platform that they were bringing to the table. Mm-hmm. And we got the message across by doing a bit of advocacy work here at our end at the Mission, inviting people to go to our website, find out who their candidates were within their ridings, and reach out to them and ask questions about what's your housing strategy.
Mm-hmm. And we know Catherine McKenney, a candidate for mayor, they came out and talked about, a plan to eliminate homelessness here in the capital in 4 years. Wendy, is that realistic?
Well, homelessness is essentially a poverty problem. There's all kinds of other pieces that are thrown into that, but ultimately it's a poverty problem. And if you look around the world and look at any jurisdiction that has eliminated homelessness, they've just poured a lot of money into the problem, and they've resolved it. The challenge to that is that if you don't put the systems of support in place, the problem just returns. But yeah, if you wanted to put enough money into it, of course you could end homelessness fairly quickly. The challenge has been really that it has been really difficult for politicians to find the amount of money that's needed to make a significant dent in the problem in this city.
Mm-hmm. Peter, were you surprised to hear that from a candidate?
To hear which piece, sorry?
To hear that somebody was hoping to eliminate homelessness within a 4-year period.
That, yes, it was a bold statement, and I think sometimes they say when you list a vision, it's not sometimes attainable, or when you put a vision out there, but you're going to put it out there as a challenge that you're determined to try and do your best to see it accomplished. So it was a bold statement from Catherine. We know her heart is in the right place, and we know that would be an objective of hers. But Wendy's right. There's just so many other factors at so many other levels of government that would have to tie into that, including builds, which usually have to come from a federal level, including the wraparound supports we keep hearing about, which usually have to come from the provincial level, and all sorts of other ingredients that need to go into the formula to see it end in 4 years. And Wendy's right about the poverty being one of the biggest drivers.
Definitely, Catherine, her heart is very big for vulnerable people, and it was definitely a bold vision for sure, and we hope we can do that, right? I mean, that would be amazing. Wendy, let me ask you, with everything going on in the world, I mean, I could list everything. Let's just list a few. Pandemic, obviously, the invasion of Ukraine, what's happening in Iran. I mean, there's just so much happening, inflation, et cetera, et cetera. Is it hard to get attention about the opioid crisis given everything happening in the world?
Yeah, it's it's shockingly difficult. If you think that in Canada, today 21 people will die of an opiate overdose, and 21 people will die tomorrow and the next day. Think about the response in this country if you had an airplane with 20 people or 21 people a day falling out of the air and everybody dying. It would take a couple of days before
the populace demanded some kind of action to stop that from happening. And yet we've had, that death rate higher or lower, but never much off of that mark for several years on end. And there's really no end in sight.
Why do you think that is, Peter?
Well, I think part of it, unfortunately, is a very marginalized population. As Wendy's pointed out exactly that 21 people from another sector would be a concern, but very unfortunately, people see the people who are injecting, sometimes people who are sleeping rough or living on the streets, and it's while they're getting close to the end of the line. But we know initiatives such as Wendy Muckle led to get that supervised consumption site here in Ottawa down on the market is because everyone deserves to stay alive. Everyone deserves a shot. It's an addiction. And we work with people to manage their addictions. We work with people to sometimes help them come out of addiction. But in the meantime, they deserve to have a life. They're not near the end of the line unless we put them there. And I think that's what happens when we see these numbers with the opioid overdoses, is that thinking of, well, where else would they be going? Well, there's somebody's daughter, there's somebody's son, there's somebody's father or mother or sister or brother. It's tragic, and it just doesn't garner the attention it deserves, or we'd be coming up with solutions.
For sure. But there is a desire for people to know. It's having the right opportunity to speak to the right people. I mean, I think back, Wendy Muckle, to a couple of weeks ago, you and I were at the Purple Tie Gala for Cornerstone. And, and I'll be honest with you, I mean, it was a busy night, lots of, celebrating going on. But when you were speaking about the realities, you could hear a pin drop in that room, Wendy, because people did want to hear your message because of the frontline work that you and your team do. So when you spoke that night, did you feel heard?
Yes, I felt heard. But, the Cornerstone Gala is, those are the allies of this fight, for sure. I think the problem for the general public is that we have internalized all sorts of messages around people who use drugs and around drugs themselves that simply are not true. And it's very difficult to unravel the beliefs that we all grew up with, the things that we were all told. And, so people will think that all drug use is bad. Well, that's ridiculous. Of course it's not. That people who are using drugs can't have a healthy, normal, productive life. Again, complete and utter nonsense. And yet that's really what we've been sold. And there are many people, who make a decision, who choose to live their lives without whatever substance it is that's caused problems to them. But there's also many people who use that substance without any sort of problem at all in their lives. And I think that that's part of the complexity, is that we can't have this, it's all or nothing sort of thinking. We have to understand that everybody's pathway and their relationship with substances is different. And so the help that we have to provide them could be nothing. They could absolutely not have any sort of problem at all. Or, it could be quite intense, but we can't put everybody into the same bucket and expect that we're going to get the results that we want to get. And I think that has really been the challenge of, and I think if you look at things at a government level, with, I guess I would say, a little bit of an exception around the feds right now, they seem to sort of be grasping more sort of complicated ideas around substance use. But if you look at, for example, our provincial government, their view on substance use and what they invest funds in and what they want to have happen is so simplistic, and it's from something like in the 70s and 80s. It's in no way matched to the contemporary needs of this community, and we're really being let down as a community, and I think more importantly, people are dying as a result.
Wow. We're going to come back with Wendy Muckle and Peter Tilley and continuing this discussion over lunch on City News and Rogers TV. Stay with us, everyone.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Salut tout le monde, je m'appelle Jessie Lindsay. Venez écouter mon spectacle Encore Ottawa 3 sur Rogers TV cette semaine. Hi everybody, come listen to my Encore Ottawa 3 show on Rogers TV this week. I hope you enjoy it.
It was our 35th anniversary. To celebrate, we were on our way to Mama Rosie's, where we had our first date. That's when we heard coming from the radio. So we stopped and listened. It helped us get to safety. So when I think of our anniversary, because now we have even more to celebrate.
We were born in Canada. We spoke English. On the streets, we weren't welcome. But on the field, we were the Asahi. Vancouver's champions. Everyone cheered for us. Our people had a voice. Then Canada declared war on Japan. They took us from our homes, called us enemies, forced us into camps. But we brought the game with us. Baseball helped get us through the internment.
The Vancouver Asahi were among the 22,000 Japanese Canadians interned during the Second World War. The team never played another game.
I am Audrey.
And I'm Leah.
It inspired me to play hockey. The War Amps has helped me by giving me my devices I need to play hockey.
Audrey has an amputation similar to mine.
What does yours do? The stick clicks in it.
My device from the War Amps allows me to shoot a lot better. It rotates like a wrist, which helps a lot with shooting and stick handling.
When I score a goal, I feel really happy.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
Well, I'm having lunch today with Wendy Muckle and Peter Tilley. I wish it was in person, you two. Wouldn't that be fun?
That day is coming.
It would be great.
Sure.
It would be great. Wendy Muckle, of course, CEO of Ottawa Inner City Health, and Peter Tilley, CEO of the Ottawa Mission. Let me ask you, Peter, are you seeing an influx of new people into the Ottawa Mission, people that you haven't seen before?
Yeah, we're certainly seeing an influx of new people. We're seeing we're at full capacity already, and the winter months are coming. So we've had meetings with the city, consultations that the physical distancing centers, some of the respite centers have been closed down now, but we're seeing the numbers spiking lately, whether it's influenza or COVID and that. So when you're at full capacity, it limits your ability to take in people who are out in the cold when this Canadian winter hits. So we're hoping to have some solutions, but in the meantime, so a difference in certainly in the number of people. Some people displaced from their homes they can't pay the rents. I mean, we talk about affordable housing. So many people like that coming in under our roof now who should be housed if there's housing out there and affordable housing out there. Mm-hmm. We understand often shelters are the end of the line for people who have nowhere else to go when everything else has fallen out of place. And we're to be a temporary stopover and work with people to get them housed is the goal of all shelters, and people don't realize that. We're all housing focused, we're all housing first advocates, trying to get people placed into housing. So we've seen the face of the people coming in the doors change as well too. So something I've noticed, and something a concern as we hit the cold Canadian winter months is, are we going to have places for people to stay? Because we're all at full capacity already.
Wow. And it's only October.
That's right.
Wendy, you are just, I don't know, you're amazing. I mean, you've been in this sector for a very long time, and during my time, in the homeless sector, which was very short compared to yours, I was only there for about 9 years. But when I think about what you've done for this community, and you've decided to retire, which is shocking to me, because I don't know what this community is going to do without you, Wendy.
Well, I have every faith in this community to carry on and to do very well. It's always important. I have, obviously have loved the work that I've been able to do. It's been such a privilege. And because Sam, you and I worked together the years when you were at the mission. But the partnerships between the organizations, the strength, the commitment, we all, hold each other up. But I look back and I think, somehow very naively when all of this started, and we were all sort of struggling to understand the problems and the solutions, we had this idea that, if we solved the problems, we could, we would end homelessness and everybody would have a house. And eventually the penny drops and you realize that, as Peter mentioned, there's always a new wave of homeless people coming. As the distance between the rich and the poor in our society widens, as health equity, gets more and more challenged, there's always going to be one more group that's going to fall out of the social safety net and need our help. And so sort of hanging on until the job is done is not really possible. And it's always, it's always good to go out on a high note, but it's also good to go out when you know that things are in good hands. And we have an amazing sector. We're very fortunate, the city partners, the politicians, the community. I think in Ottawa we have a very compassionate community. So I'm very confident that this is the right time, and that, that the things will carry on and get better and change, but all of the right things are already in place.
Well, if there's somebody in this community that's worked incredibly hard, it's you, Wendy, and I hope that you're able to take some time for yourself, because I know this job isn't an 8 to 4 by any stretch. It's 24/7. So I really, really appreciate everything you've done. What words of wisdom would you have if somebody's listening right now, Wendy, and they're maybe just getting into this sector? What would you say to them?
I think that what I would say to them is that at the end of all of it, the essence of the work that we do is really around being kind to people when they're at the lowest point in their life. And so, whatever they've lost, whatever challenges they're facing, we're here to hold on hope when hope has gone from their life. And it costs very little for us as a society to be kind to people who are in this situation. And it's very easy to get caught up in the, programs and systems of care and all of those things. But at the end of the day, what remains is a human being who's in a very, very difficult situation. And the essence of our work must always be reaching out to them, holding on to hope when they've lost their hope, and being kind.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if this has ever happened to you, Peter. It happened to me a few times as I met people. I was there for close to a decade, and I would meet somebody and I would walk away thinking, like, that easily could have been me. Right? Like, if I hadn't, maybe started to go away from a direction of friends that maybe were going the way that wasn't the safest way, we'll put it that way. And, that maybe my parents helped me financially, or, that I was able to get some breaks for school. Or it often struck me that I thought I could be, living here or living, on the streets if it wasn't for people that helped me through. And that always stuck with me, that, there by the grace of God go I.
You're so right, Sam. People who know of my journey, I've always been open and transparent about it, as I'm an addiction survivor. I like to think of myself. And I remember years ago when I was in the throes of my addiction, having a tour of the Shepherds of Good Hope managed alcohol program. what a wonderful program it was. And I was thinking I'm getting close to being there if I didn't turn my life around. And of course, I had all the supports, family, friends, and organization that supported me to go away and get better. So many of those supports that our people just don't have by the time they're in the coming to the latter stages of the addiction. They're disconnected with family, and even then it could have been dysfunctional or family members that probably weren't the type they should be in contact with, and friends limited, no obvious organizational support often. So, but I've also seen people like myself who are here now, who had those careers, who were on Bay Street as investment bankers making $300,000 a year until cocaine addictions felled them. We've seen those people come in our doors and go through our programs too. So, but for the grace of God, why? It's always a compassion, a peace I have in my heart with these people we serve every single day that I was close, and it's a tough road out, and sometimes it's just a manageable road to stay in, and we make it the best we can, as Wendy touched on earlier, for those who have an addiction and are living with an addiction and are functioning with an addiction. We make life as good as we can at the time meeting them at this place in their life at this moment.
Absolutely. Wendy, when you're able to sort of take some time for yourself, and let's say it's 6 months from now or a year from now, is there somebody that you're going to remember that your paths have crossed, and you're going to remember and think, that's why I did the work that I did?
Well, Sam, I have to tell you that I can see the faces of so many clients from over the years, and I'm so terrible with names and faces, but when it comes to the clients at Inner City, I remember their names and their faces and their stories. Right. And those, I walk around with them all the time, and they, when I walk out of the doors of Inner City, they won't leave me, I hope. I hope that they'll stay with me. And, for every lesson that I've had to learn, for every hard thing that I've had to learn, there has been one or two clients who kind of taught me everything that I needed to know about that. And so I certainly have some personal favorites, and I live with, things people have given me, their artwork. Many of my favorite clients, fortunately for me, were amazing artists, and I have some beautiful artwork that, I live with day in and day out. But I don't think that I could ever forget the lessons that they've taught me. At very least, they made me a better person. And absolutely made me better at my job than I ever would have been, left to my own devices. I would have to give, probably the client that taught me the most, that I was the closest to, was a gentleman named Rudy Toma, or Thomas, or the government spelled his name 5 different ways, which made it very difficult for him to get anything that he was entitled to, who was an Indigenous man from Northern Ontario, Cree, and who was just an amazing artist, a survivor of residential schools, of course, but all other kinds of trauma that you could ever have possibly imagined. And, through the early days of Inner City, was one of the main people who taught and guided me, for everything that we needed to know, every problem that we came up against. Rudy had something to say or something to teach that always set us in the right direction. And there's never a day that I don't think about him.
Amazing. I'm so glad I asked that, Wendy. You have no idea. You just made my day. Wendy Muckle, CEO of Ottawa Inner City Health, and Peter Tilley, CEO of the Ottawa Mission. Thanks for having lunch with me today, you two.
Thanks, Sam, and thanks, Peter.
It was a feast. Yeah,
it was lovely.
Wendy, but boy, we are going to miss Wendy Muckle.
Absolutely,
we will not be the same without her.
100%. Stay with us here on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Hello, my name is Sean Duhame. And this is the Sean Duhame Trio. I hope you enjoyed.
October 5th, 2014, my daughter was hit by a train. She was walking along the sides of the tracks, and it shattered her world.
When an impaired driver killed my brother DJ, my life changed forever. During the pandemic, all of our lives changed, and many of us turned to alcohol and drugs to cope. As life returns to normal, the increase in substance use from COVID has lingered, and some police services report an increase in impaired driving that caused heartbreak and devastation. Now, more than ever, we need your commitment to never drive impaired, and to encourage all of your family and friends to do the same. Together, we can save lives.
Do you have something to share? Let everyone know about your next meeting, your need for volunteers, or your fundraising event on the Rogers TV Community Billboard. Send us your words and we'll bring them to life on Rogers TV and rogerstv.com. When it's time to spread the word, go to rogerstv.com to add your announcement to the Community Billboard.
Join me for Season 3 of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. Whew, that was a lot. I think I need a nap.
On the next episode of Simply Cooking by Chef, tacos aren't only for Tuesday. I make a Mexican taco feast for a crowd.
Local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
It's Thursday, October 27th. Good afternoon. I am Damilola Unime. Right now in Ottawa and in Smith Falls, partly cloudy, 7 degrees, and here's what's making news this hour. The U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is in Ottawa today to meet with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and our Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly. They'll be discussing the crisis in Ukraine, human rights in Iran, and refugee policies. This is Blinken's first official visit to Canada. And foreign-trained nurses are now able to practice in Ontario while they work towards full registration in Canada. And physicians licensed in other provinces and territories will get a 3-month temporary registration to work in Ontario. Health Minister Sylvia Jones announced the policy change earlier today and says it takes effect immediately. The move is part of the Ford government's plan to stabilize Ontario's healthcare system amid acute nurse shortages in hospitals across the province. And Hockey Canada says it is now a full signatory to Abuse-Free Sports. It's a new independent program to prevent and address maltreatment in sports in this country. Effective immediately, all abuse, discrimination, and harassment complaints at the national level will go directly to the Office of the Sports Integrity Commissioner. City News Time is 12:32. I am Damilola Unime. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, every weekday, what we're doing between 12:30 and 1 is we're putting a spotlight on business. And I've really enjoyed this opportunity to get to know what's happening with the business community. And there was certainly big news this week out of Canada. We wanted to spend some time with Kathy McKellion. Hi, Kathy.
Hi, Sam. How are you doing today?
Fantastic. Great to spend time with you. Recruitment strategy and community relations manager for Ross Video. I'm just going to say this word, you Hub 350. Tell me all about it.
Well, first of all, I would like to say thanks very much for having me on the show today, Sam. As you know, Ross is a global leader in live production technology. We are also a dedicated community partner in the National Capital Region. So 2 years ago, I was on a Zoom call with Jamie Petton, the President and Executive Director of the Canada North Business Association. When Jamie spoke about her vision for Hub 350, a state-of-the-art technology center in the midst of the Canada North Business Park. As Jamie was laying out her vision, she smiled and mentioned that she would love to include a media lab. Of course, that really piqued my interest, and I quickly set up a meeting to discuss the lab and how we could get involved. Well, this week we launched the media lab with Canada North Business Association and Sir Terry Matthews.
And that was incredible. I saw a lot of the footage. I would have loved to have been there. I had a conflict, but it certainly was a very exciting day in our city. What did Sir Terence Matthews had to say?
Oh, I mean, he's absolutely thrilled. He knows that this is going to sew together the other technology companies in the region, as well as the local educational institutions that, we honestly believe that together we're stronger.
Absolutely. Now, I saw some fantastic videos today about, opening up Hub 350 and how exciting it was. And I saw David Ross, your CEO. We love David. He comes on City News all the time with this big, giant pair of scissors, cutting this ribbon, which was lots of fun. Walk us through, the process for David getting involved and really getting behind this project.
David was absolutely supportive from the very beginning. He recognizes the importance of working together with the community. The other thing that's really important to David is experiential learning opportunities for students. And this lab will provide those meaningful opportunities that the students need. The experiences will provide exposure to some of the best technologies in the world that is literally built here right in the National Capital area.
Wow.
As we know, there's a huge talent shortage in the area. And by giving students meaningful learning opportunities, they're more likely to stay in the region after graduating.
It's so true. And, one of the topics we've spoke to David about, and we've spoke to you before as well, Kathy, about trying to retain that talent and attract that talent to this region. Hub 350 just sounds like, one of the pieces to the puzzle, if you will.
Absolutely. Yeah. We are so very fortunate to have fantastic post-secondary institutions here in Ottawa. They educate and graduate some of the best talent. And we want to make sure that we keep those graduates here in the region and attract even more of the best and the brightest.
Absolutely. Give us a sense, for those that aren't familiar with Ross Video, I've certainly got to know the company over the years. Give us a sense of what Ross Video is all about.
Well, we create technology for live production. So if you think about live sporting events, live news broadcasts, live concerts, anything that's presented to the viewer at home in a live situation, we bring that technology, our technology is what brings that event to your screen at home.
It's amazing. And I love the fact, and David's so passionate about this, this has remained a Canadian company, which is so important. And I think from a business perspective, I'm sure, and I know David spoke about it publicly, how this could have, gone to another country, but he wanted to keep it home, here at home.
Absolutely. David is very passionate about Ross remaining a Canadian company. We manufacture here in Canada, in fact, here in Eastern Ontario. Our manufacturing facility is about an hour outside of the Ottawa region in the beautiful little town called Iroquois, Ontario.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know your title includes a recruitment strategy. So this was, obviously you're very passionate about it. You've been working on it for a couple of years. Tell us a little bit about how you will sort of integrate with Hub 350 from Ross Video's perspective.
Well, again, it's really about working together with the other industries in the area. We all have a talent shortage, so it's really important that we attract top talent to the region. Technology sector is the number 2 employer in the National Capital Region, and it's incredibly critical to the local economy. And that's why we're actively communicating about the technology advancements and innovation that's happening here in Canada, the Canada Business Park, Ottawa, and the surrounding area. By communicating the innovation that's happening, we're going to attract more and more people to the region, and hopefully those talent shortages will diminish a bit.
And Kathy, I can't help but think, of attracting people from literally all over the world, and I think that's one of the things Ottawa does best is showcase itself as the capital. I think people sometimes, if they haven't been to Ottawa, don't realize how beautiful it is, how culturally rich rich it is. And that's, one of the things sometimes people just think about us as, well, it's really cold there. But the reality is it's only for a couple of months. Is that part of the strategy as well, as really showcasing Ottawa and in particular Canada?
Absolutely. That's absolutely key, Sam. We're going to make sure that we're highlighting highlighting Ottawa and making sure that we are, really show off what we have to offer in the region.
Mm-hmm. And let's talk a little bit about Iroquois, because I know David as well speaks so beautifully about that community and what it's meant to be part of that community. Are you currently recruiting positions? Is there somebody right now that potentially could be listening and think, hey, that might be for me?
Absolutely. We have 100 positions open at all times, Sam.
Wow.
So many of them are here in the Ottawa region, but we also have a number of manufacturing opportunities in Iroquois.
Amazing. It's wonderful to get caught up with you, Kathy. Kathy McCallion, Recruitment Strategy and Community Relations Manager for Ross Video. It's great to hear all about Hub 350. If we wanted to learn more, Kathy, where could we find out more?
Absolutely. Go to www.rossvideo.com. /careers is for our career section, but of course you can learn about our technology at our website. Amazing.
Thank you so much. Kathy McCallion joining us today from Ross Video. And obviously go on social media and find everything about Hub 350 as well. Lots of great footage from the big event that took place this week, so you'll definitely want to check that out as well. We love spending time, once again, between 12:30 and 1 o'clock every day, really putting a spotlight on business. If you have an idea for us, I would love to hear from you. So just reach out to us. You can find us obviously through social media, ottawa.citynews.ca as well as our website. You can reach out to one of my producers and pitch any idea that you have for the business lunch, because this is an idea for all of us to get to know these businesses, especially heading into, the Christmas period, the holiday period, where you might want to showcase a business that's unique. And we really want to provide, that shop local message as well. We've been speaking to a number of BIAs. We've been speaking to Su-Ling Ching from the Ottawa Board of Trade. This is really an opportunity for us to get to know some of those businesses. We're going to get to know Dottie Ellenberg in a little bit. She's from the County Bounty. We're going to be spending some time with Dottie. And I want to remind everybody as well that, here on City News, we do cover a lot of tough topics. I know we spoke about a lot of tough topics today. We spoke about violence against women. We obviously shared the story as well of Sally Lane, whose son Jack is in a Syrian prison, and she's got some hope that she may be seeing her son again. He may be coming home. We know that 4 of those Canadians that were in the Syrian prison have been repatriated back to Canada, so we're following that story. There is sometimes some tough topics here. We really do try to, to tell you stories that maybe you're not hearing anywhere else. But we also like to throw in a little fun, so we hope that you've enjoyed your time with us today. When we come back, we're going to talk about something that you may not have heard about, and it is artisanal soda. Stay with us here on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Every year, dozens of Canadians are killed or seriously injured because they take risks around railway tracks. Talk to your loved ones about rail safety. Visit stoptracktragedies.ca.
Salut tout le monde, je m'appelle Jessie Lindsay. Venez écouter mon spectacle Encore Ottawa 3 sur Rogers TV cette semaine. Hi everybody, come listen to my Encore Ottawa 3 show on Rogers TV this week. I hope you enjoy it.
I'm Derek Fage, and I encourage you to join me each and every weekday at 2 p.m. for an edition of Daytime Ottawa. We will share with you some fabulous stories, inspirational stories, and of course, recipes from local chefs. We'll tell you about some wonderful musical performances, introduce you to local businesses and charities, and so much more. Join us here on Daytime Ottawa at 2 p.m. weekdays with repeats at 6 and 11 p.m.
Everybody knows not to drink and drive, but some people still think it's okay to take drugs and drive. Police have the authority, the ability, and the tools to determine if drivers are impaired by legal or illegal drugs. And because drug-impaired drivers can pose just as great a risk as drunk drivers, they face the same penalties, like the loss of their driver's license, a criminal record, fines, and more. A message from the RCMP, the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police, and Arrive Alive, Drive Sober.
Hey folks, it's me, Giovanni Patini, the host of the RTV quiz show, the hottest show on television. It's the hilarious quiz show where you, the viewers, play for valuable non-existent prizes. It's got great trivia, fun facts, and a lot of laughs, all blended together in a perfect cocktail of edutainment. So join us Wednesdays at 7:30 right here on Rogers TV. Nice.
Hi, I'm Sahai from The Wiggles, and this is my new book, Something in Common. Join me on an adventure as a camp counselor helping some amazing children make friends and share what family means to them. I wrote this book with my friends at Children's Aid Foundation of Canada to help children who might feel lonely or like they don't belong. Not everyone has the same type of family, but we all have something in common. Download Something in Common for free.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
So a few weeks ago, I went to this beautiful fall market, and it was a wonderful opportunity to meet lots of makers and lots of people in our community that put their heart on their sleeve and they make things. And it was everything from pottery to cards to food to everything in between. And then I saw this amazing little booth, and I thought, I have to check that out. And little did I know that I would fall in love with all things County Bounty. And Dodie Ellenbogen joins me now. Hi, Dodie.
Hi, how's it going?
Great, because you are the founder of the County Bounty. And tell people about this, because I don't think many people know about this type of soda.
Yeah, so this is all my own creation. The County Bounty started as an organic vegetable farm about 6 years ago. And I just was not making enough money farming, and kind of serendipitously at the same time, a friend had gifted me a huge flat of strawberries, thinking that because I was a farmer, I must know how to make jams and preserves and stuff. And that is not my scene. So I Googled what else I could do, and a recipe for cordials, which is like the syrup you would add to sparkling water, came up. And I thought, maybe this is something I could do. So I started making it with local fruit and some of the herbs that I was growing on my farm, and I was taking it to markets, and people were so pumped about it. So I decided to kind of drop the whole farming thing and just pursue making sodas with Ontario fruit.
Okay, and I'm going to tell you, they're delicious. I know you know this already. Okay, so I went and I bought 12. So I think I bought to give a variety, of my favorites. I certainly have my favorites. But give us a sense of some of these flavors, because it's not something you're going to find, at the grocery store, that you normally would look at sodas, right? This is something very special. Give us a sense of some of those flavors.
Yeah, so some of our most popular flavors, we have a strawberry and basil soda, which is like a nice combo of the sweet and the savory. We also do sour cherry and mint soda. We have a wild grape and ginger soda. a lavender lemon basil soda. So yeah, our flavors are unusual just because we're trying to use only local stuff.
I don't know how you did it, but you just named my top 4 favorites. I swear that wasn't planned, but that was my top 4. You have some really unusual ones, though. And I know you mentioned when I saw you the other evening, we saw each other at the Breaking Bread, Breaking Stigma Gala for Hopewell, and you had donated some product there, which was very kind of you to do. You mentioned one of them to me, and I had never heard of this one before.
Yeah, so the recipe I'm most proud of is our tonic. So I call it a foraged botanicals tonic. So it's a mixture of all the things you'd find growing on the side of the road, pretty much anywhere in this region. So it's sumac berries, juniper berries, cedar leaves, and pine needles. And so that mixture has like a lot of tannins in it, so you get the same kind of tonic-y feel, but it's just like all the smells of the forest are in there, and it's just so lovely, and I love it.
I'll have to try it on my next go-around, Dodie. Let me ask you this. When you say to your friends and family, I'm going to start making soda, what do they say to you?
It was kind of a natural progression. I mean, we needed something on the farm that was going to make us a bit of extra side money, and none of us really expected it to explode the way it did. So it just kind of all snowballed, and there was no point at which I said okay, this is it. This is what I'm going to do with my life.
Right.
It just kind of happened, and it's been an awesome wild ride.
And a big part of it, right, is the packaging, and your packaging is very attractive. It looks, it looks premium. It looks lovely, but your cost is very reasonable. So, how important was the branding side of this?
Well, I actually went to university for art and design, so that was kind of it was just an easy thing for me to do on my own and get that all kind of looking pretty nice, just with my own skills. And I wanted to do something more colorful because generally these kind of higher end products are more like black or gray or, very serious. So I was hoping to do something a bit more fun and playful, and that kind of thing just suits me as a person. And so much of the branding, it ties into my personality too. So it just seemed right to just do all these wild colors.
Well, it was perfect, and you've done a beautiful job. And I know we saw you. Obviously, I saw you first time at that market and purchased some product from you. But if somebody was listening right now and they're like, "Hey, that would be a fun thing to try," how could they try out some of these County Bounty sodas?
We're stocked in quite a few places in Ottawa. We just partnered up with Motif Boutique on Wellington in Hintonburg, and she has a huge selection of flavors at really great prices. But we're also stocked in a lot of the smaller shops in town, like the Tiki Market or Top Shelf Preserves, Cadman's Bagels, and if you're out in the East End, Pantry Plus, places like that.
Well, that's fantastic, and congratulations! You really have come up with something very unique. I love the fact, obviously, you're using product and fruits and vegetables from the province of Ontario, which is just the bonus there.
Yeah, and I just did some quick math earlier, and I think we've used almost 4,000 kilograms of local fruit this year.
Wow, that's incredible. That's incredible. Well, I just wish you all the success, and this is, once again, this is why we come to the business lunch every day and feature a business and love to give you a bit of a shout out. So thank you so much, Dodie.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Dodie Ellenbogen joining us, and she is with the County Bounty Artisanal Soda. And such a lovely person, and once again donated her product the other day to the Hopewell Gala, which was very, very kind. It certainly has been a very busy week here at City News. I don't know about you, Jason White. I can't believe it's only Thursday.
I was just saying that, and it's to the point where I've had it and I need to leave early today. So there's something we need to let our listeners know. This is going to be very disruptive all afternoon. It's going to throw everyone's day off.
Right.
Usually Danielle comes on to do the news. Like ever since we did this thing where we moved up Rob, we moved up your show, we expanded the afternoon news. Danielle is now on from 1 to 4, and then I'm on from 4 to 7. She and I are doing a little tradesy. So I'm going to leave early today, so I'm going to do 1 to 4. Danielle will be on 4 to 7, and I'm sure it'll ruin everybody's afternoon. But I wanted to leave early today, so there we go.
There you go. Because, of course, this, the election being on a Monday, and we were here very late that night. And, of course, when I got home, I couldn't sleep because I was Googling all the new people. But from a news perspective, it certainly is. It's a highlight for us this week.
Absolutely. I mean, it's probably one of the biggest nights of an election year, and then one of the biggest nights and one of the biggest stories that we cover in a 4-year term. So it's like nerd prom. It's for people who care about this, and that's why we got into this business, is because we're into local news, into local. Yeah, there's the high-minded, capital J journalism and public service, blah blah blah, but it's also really fun. So.
And we're king and queen of the prom in this case, absolutely, because we're both here having the time of our lives. It's been really interesting, Jay, and I know you've got so much going on, and you're hearing some of these interviews, but interviewing a lot of these new counselors, and the theme, even with incumbents, the theme I'm hearing is hope for this city. And it's been a long time, Jay, since I've heard sort of a resounding fresh start, if you will.
Well, and I think some of us or a lot of us are hungry for hope right now, right? Because the last 3 years, there hasn't always been a lot to hope for. I've also been thinking about this, and one of the things that stuck with me from election night is how much I appreciate the speeches. Now, I've said this to a couple of people. I can't remember if I'm repeating myself on the air, but on election night, Catherine McKenney's concession speech, I think that is a textbook example of how to do it. Mark Sutcliffe's acceptance speech, including, how much he admires McKenney and appreciates their commitment to public service in this community. And I think that was, I'm really glad that still happens, because there have been a few times in the last few years, I've really come to learn and appreciate how important the concession speech is to democracy. I never really thought about it, because it always happened. The person who loses the election speaks first. They concede. They say, okay, we need to all get behind the person who won this election, and then the person who won. But in the last few years, we have seen mid-concession speech, the winner just charge out onto the stage and start the speech, forcing all of the TV networks to cut away mid-speech from the loser to go to the person who won the election. And then, of course, other instances in the world where people refuse to acknowledge the results of a free and fair election. So I felt last night was kind of back to how things perhaps should be, where, we have a process, we participate in the process, you may not like the result, but this is the result, and the will of the people's been expressed, and now we move forward together. So, yeah, I mean, deep thoughts, for 12:56 in the afternoon. But, I've been thinking a lot about this over the last couple days.
I love it. Really important. And next week, we're going to have Mayor-elect Mark Sutcliffe join us. And this will be my first opportunity to chat with Mark, since he is Mayor-elect. So I'm certainly looking forward to that. We know how busy it is for not only Mark, but for all of those new counselors as they're heading to school, which is council school. So it's going to be interesting to see what comes out of that as well. And really appreciate you joining me today, Jason White. I didn't know you were leaving early, so I'm so glad that you had the opportunity to step in and spend some time with us. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Appreciate that, and appreciate all of our team today. I've got some producers that are working really hard behind the scenes. You don't get to hear them. It's Alex and Noah and Aaron, and they're really, really working hard to bring you the stories that we do every single day. Some of them are really tough to hear. We heard a few of those tough stories today, but I hope you've learned something today. I learned something every single day from our guests. It's my honor and my pleasure to spend time with you today. Lock it in to City News.
To the Sam Laprade Show.
Tune in again for local news and community views on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.